I think without further ado, we can get started, right?
Cool. Do we want to do, if you guys are online on Twitch, you want to do the chat together, merge chat?
Oh. Yeah, sure. How does that work?
So, I should be getting an option of working together when I join your channels. Hang on. You're gonna ask the old man to explain how this works. Hang on. So
I know
see
you can
you're
do
online.
like invite someone to stream together, and then they get a link, and then they can click a thing, and then that works.
Yeah. So, Lythi, I've just
Oh.
knocked on your door. You should have gotten a pop-up.
I have clicked agree.
So you turn off your camera and your microphone in that little window, right? And don't share your screen. But there is a button called Share Chat, which I have now started. And then I go to Kitty.
Okay.
And then I knock on your door, which should give you the same pop-up. I think automatically. All right, cool. Well, that's it.
Wonderful.
So now everybody's in the same chat, and you can see who's chatting where with the icon in front of them.
Now we can see everyone who's talking shit.
Damn right.
Sweet. Alrighty. Then, without further ado. Righty. I'm gonna start recording because last time I forgot it. I had to download the VOD and I realized the quality is garbage. And this time I'm a smarter man. So there we go. Alrighty. Well. Hello, everyone. Once again, we're finding us here to chat a little bit of lore. My name is Lythi. I will be your severely under-caffeinated host for the next hour or two, roughly. And I have two absolutely wonderful people with me this time around. And on the one side, the man that is about as muscular as his brain is wrinkly when it comes to lore. Nobbel, my friend, how are you doing today?
Well, after a compliment like that, can't get much better, to be honest. Sorry, I'm in the middle of like killing people in the Void Storm. Let me just go to the capital so I can actually just focus. Hi, everybody.
He's also a PvP savant, as
PvP
it
god.
appears. So
Yep.
if you're getting farmed in Voidstorm by some paladin, or is it on your hunter or your DK?
Paladin,
What are you up to? On the paladin? Well, you know who to blame. But hey, you can also fight back and bully him a little bit.
I mean,
That's
the level
allowed.
88, it's not really terrifying.
I mean, that's fair. On the other side, someone I have the pleasure to chat with for the first time, and it is an honor for me. I'm not quite sure if she is more of a tinfoil hat purveyor or more of a N'Zoth fan cap distributor, but Discordian Kitty, it is wonderful having you here. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Nobbel, obviously, we've done this the last time, I think it was a little bit before midnight release, I wanted to say, then I realized it was basically like almost a year ago, so I was a little bit shocked to realize we did this in July or something last year. So time flies, but we have found ourselves a little bit after expansion release, and obviously, new expansion means a lot of new lore, and quite honestly, I just want to do like a quick round slash of opinions and kind of catch your thoughts on what's going on, what you're feeling so far, how you're liking Midnight and the entire story presentation. Nobbel, kind of 1 to 10 on the scale, how would you rate your Midnight lore experience so far?
For me, 1 to 10, I would say from the beginning it was an 8, but with the recent max level campaign, so like the last 2 to 3 weeks, it dipped quite significantly. With how high the highs are, I would still give it a 6, but it's leaning towards a 5 for me. Yeah.
Overall, a 5? Damn. Oh, that's harsh. Okay.
Mm.
We'll get back to the why in just a second, because Kitty, I gotta ask you the same thing. What's your scale rating for Midnight so far? Okay. Okay. 9, 7, somewhere.
That's the
somewhere
same, right?
around. If you put it in context, it's probably fairly similar. Quite honestly, I think I'm in a similar boat. I massively enjoyed the leveling experience and the zone questing. The max level campaign definitely dropped off a little. But I've been thinking about this a lot, from like the type of storytelling enjoyer that I seem to be. Oh. Oh no.
I can hear you.
We can hear you fine as well. Well, no one in my chat is complaining.
Sharela can hear you. It's on your own broadcast.
It's my own
is it?
chat.
Did
There we
you
go.
did
Can
you
you hear-
disable your mic on OBS?
So sorry. Can you hear me now? It's my chat.
Hang on, let
Still can't hear me.
reboot,
That is so weird.
Share chat as well, because I'm not seeing your chatters in our chat. Oh, there
No,
we go.
there we
I
go.
hear you now.
There we go.
Cool, there
Hear
it
me
is.
now.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
You didn't miss
Okay.
much, chat. I just said I saw it as a 7. Started out 9, went down to 7. Sorry about that.
Don't worry about it. We deal with tech issues. That's just normal, I think. If my PC blue screens and I'm gone randomly in between, then you know that can happen as well. So But yeah, I personally enjoyed the leveling experience a lot. I think in terms of the individual questing zones, Midnight was almost a 10 for me. I think this has been one of my favorite questing experiences since Legion. It's basically up there with Legion. But similar to you guys, with the max level campaign, it dropped down a little bit more. I want to say like 2 to 3 points. So I probably landed somewhere around like a 7.5. So overall, 8.5 for me. So I am pretty happy with Midnight, but with a downwards trend. And obviously, Nobbel, I gotta come back to you right now because you're being harsh on Midnight. What's up? What are the biggest highlights and what are the lowlights that tear off 5 points of the entire thing?
Well, no, 2 points. I started at 8, and it went to a 6, maybe a 5, right? So 2 points. And what are the highs? Like, as everybody here is saying, I really enjoyed the leveling experience. I really enjoyed the build-up. Really cool how they separate the Void Spire from the March in order to give us a bit of breathing room and feel like, oh, we're actually losing the fight and something's happening. And then we went into the end campaign, and it shows that while there are great outliers, like great outlines on the storyboard, like this is what we want to tell, for me, the road there is not giving the breathing room it needs in order to give a satisfying conclusion to it. So, for example, the elven reunification, where I'm like, okay, is that something that you really want to dive into? Do you really want to open up something like the Purge of Dalaran, like the Burning Hotel de Seal in order to tell your story? Is that already a good spot to begin at? But if you are going to do that, that is a lot of history that deserves time to cook and to brew and to go. And to me, as a clear example, it is mind-blowing that in a storyline where you reopen the Purge Dalaran, nowhere is the Divine Bell mentioned. I find that ridiculous. Like, the Divine Bell is the catalyst of the Purge of Dalaran. Nobody is talking about it. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to do it, you need to do all the aspects, and you need to give it time. And there's a couple more where we can dive into, but that's more specific. And then if we're talking about, okay, how did the beginning of Midnight end? The story right now, as it stands, is suddenly Sylvana showed up and she scared off the bad guy. And in my mind, that is disappointing because they started off the storyline very strong with a Sylvanas telling Arator, like, listen, I made my mistakes. I need to pay for my mistakes. You go be the Windrunner. And I was over the moon. I was like, this is so hesitant. This is so good build-up. There's seeds there. And instead of letting that grow and cook, you go like, lol, nah, here's Sylvana. She saves the day. Going against her promise and dropping hints at an expansion to come. And I'm like, why not let that grow? Why not let that cook? Why not have Sylvana send an agent in order to help out? And that agent then turns around and like, Sylvana sends regards. Or, you know, I understand you want to bring back Sylvanas into the story. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. Sylvana's really popular. But the way that it is done, ouch. So, yeah.
It feels terribly rushed. Yeah, I think I very much agree with the max level campaign there. Because Purge of Dalaran, well, not just the Purge of Dalaran, right? But also there's a couple of other things that obviously people were talking about, like, where the hell is the Horde? The Blood Elves that are part of the Horde faction. Like, if you're taking the time to open up all these cans of worms, why do you not take a moment to address that as well, right? And it just feels like such a really, really rushed piece of storytelling. We want to get to this big narrative moment. It doesn't really matter too much how we get there, as long as we hit the important cornerstone. And it hurts so much more because the cornerstones are good, and the story and the outline is good, and the highlights are there. But you could have done so much better if you're just taking a little bit more time. Is that your experience as well, to an extent, Kitty, or do you have slightly different opinion on any of these points?
So, I really don't want to judge Midnight's story. I feel there's definitely a feeling where everyone's saying the story is really rushed, and it does feel that way because we've defended the Sunwell. Sunwell went dark. We fixed it. Elves are reunited. Now what? Like, we were promised Midnight was about the reunification of the elves, and now it's done. And it was done. It was definitely rushed. They didn't get us there in a way that feels satisfying for such an important and big story. So I agree with that. But part of me is very interested to see why all of this is wrapped up so quickly. And I would love to hope that things are not as settled as they seem, specifically with regards to the Sunwell. I would love to hope that something happens again, that it's not, oh, we've turned it into the Dawnwell and now everything's fine and that's how it's going to be forever. I don't know if that's just copium on my part. It's just I would like to believe that one of the reasons why it feels so rushed is because we're supposed to be lured into this false sense of security. But that said, I definitely agree with the criticisms about getting the reunification of the elves. Also, where are the dragons? How can you have an entire expansion about bringing back the dragon aspects, which means the guardians of Azeroth? They come back not only with their powers, but given to them by Azeroth herself. Now we're in this big, huge conflict that it involves Azeroth, and they're nowhere to be seen. Where is Kalecgos? This is his ex-girlfriend who's under threat. They're right there. Where are they? The Horde stuff, I feel like they could have worked that in fairly easily just by saying, okay, it would have taken too long to get the orcs over, and also they're not very good at dealing with Sunwell stuff anyway. And the undead want to help, but it hurts them because of the light or something like that. Like, you don't have to go really, really strong into it, but they could have maybe explained their presence not being around. The dragons, I can't even think of a reason why the dragons wouldn't at least show up. They've got wings. They can fly. They're right there. They're like close by. We go to the Dragon Isles, yes, to get the Night Elves, but not the dragons. Where are they? What are they doing? It definitely feels weird that they just kind of haven't even been mentioned. And again, Kalecgos, not to mention Jaina, who her whole name was notably absent while we're discussing the purging of Dalaran, when she's like a major reason why the whole thing happened in the first place. She is currently, last we saw, getting back together with Kalecgos. Jaina and Kalecgos would make way more sense for those two to have shown up at the end of the cinematic than for it to be Sylvanas. And don't get me wrong, I like Sylvanas' cameo. I can't help it. I like her, and she's opening up, stuff in the Shadowlands that I'm quite interested to see. I'm looking forward to that. But it does feel weird, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here on out.
Yeah, like the story beats are good. It's just how they get there that is like, and in this case, especially like we've had these arguments a lot on stream. Like, okay, do you expect them to deathball things? And no, I've seen story where they deathball things, which is bring all the force together and just wipe it out. Is not the greatest experience. But if you're gonna make a quest line where your NPCs are going like, we need reinforcements. Who could we ask? Arator goes literally, we need all the armies. Then I want you in your story to explain to me why are we not getting these armies. And it's easy to explain. You make a scenario, we teleport to Stormwind and Orgrimmar, you go into the war room where all these messengers are coming in, and they only have to tell me that the rest of Azeroth is also being invaded by the Void. By that point, you have bordered that the rest of the world is busy. I don't need to see it, I don't need to help them, I just need to know that that is happening. But as it stands right now, I'm teleporting to the Night Elves, and they're so casual about it, about the world ending, that they're like, well, you know, the world is ending, but I kind of need you to make a case as to how we're going to help your Sunwell. Like, can you explain to me what the situation is? And I'm like, have you not seen the beam in the sky? We know that Xal'atath is out there. This is a world-ending threat. This is not the time to get on your high horse and be like, well, I know you helped us out with that World Tree problem, but can you explain it to me? And I'm like, I get that you want to go back into the elven problematics, the elven history. I get that, but you need to do it right, and just reopening that and then not do anything with it and be like, we have our high home. Because I honestly, if we're gonna go back into the storyline, then I will reconfigure my judgment of the story and be like, okay, this is what we're getting now. But as it stands right now, we have a cutscene, a scenario where Liadrin is standing at the Sunwell, at the Dawnwell. All the other elven leaders are standing next to her, and she proclaims our high home. And I'm like, okay, sure. And could they go back to these difficulties and these relations 100%? But you already had this epic moment of our high home, the Dawnwell's restored. You already had your moment, and that's what I'm saying. Let that cook. Move that to the end of the expansion. Let the Dawnwell be. They're not going to use it anyways, apparently. Because Chandris is like, you should give up your well. And then she shows up with magical well water, and she gives them a new well. And I'm like, is Chandris upset about this new well now? She doesn't say anything about it.
Yeah, the big argument was this cannot be a font of power anymore, and now it is a small font of power. Is it like a fancy Blood Elf themed Moonwell now, or
it's
what's going on with that? I really hope. Go ahead.
It's a rather pleasant pool. That is what we've got now. A rather pleasant little pool, and that is one of my
nice little foot bath.
It's a nice little pool, and I just think that I can't get over. I can get past everything else. I can't get over that this expansion started with this giant, beautiful golden well reaching up into the sky, then turned it dark and made everyone go, oh my word, allow us to switch back and forth between this whenever we want to, and then took them both away and replaced them with apparently very powerful, because they put all this stuff in it, rather pleasant little pool.
But is it weird to ask, like, when Chandris goes, I don't want them to have a well, then I'm wondering, like, what does she feel about this well now? Is it weird to ask, like, what are we doing here? Like, what is this well? I kind of feel that after we did this whole ritual, I should know what the Blood Elves have. But I've spoken to 5 people, and 5 people have given me different answers as to what the well is now.
It's an
like,
interesting
do you know?
thing,
Like,
right?
it's a genuine question. Like, do you know, like, what the well is?
I cannot with 100% certainty tell you what this well is, but the way I understood it, everything that was added in wasn't to turn or transform the well into a different source of power or change its nature, so to say, but more to neutralize the intense void corruption that basically turned it into the dark well. And the way I understood this ritual was basically you take the core essence that was the Sunwell from the get-go, then it was reignited with the Heart of Muru, with the cleansed Heart of Muru, then turned into the dark well by Xal'atath. And you subtract the void corruption, you subtract the Heart of Muru again, and you turn it back into more or less what it was from the get-go, but not really, because apparently it's not as powerful. So it feels very ambiguous what exactly it is right now to me.
To me, it feels kind of wishy-washy. Like, we want to tell a story where everybody lives together in Silvermoon, but oh, by the way, they're still totally fighting each other. And we kind of want to take away the Sunwell, but oh, by the way, they still totally have a Sunwell. I'm like, what are we doing?
It's it's a little bit. I mean, it's kind of a Savannah story. It's very much full on vague posting at the moment. But I have the hope that Blizzard will come back in the next few patches and campaign chapters. That they come back and explain to us what exactly is going on now. That they clarify. Which isn't the ideal way, in my opinion, to do this. I would much rather prefer they did this in this chapter that we have already, that we have this epilogue where we can explore the whole thing and see what's going on with it and what it is now ultimately, instead of waiting a few months and then getting the next campaign chapter.
This is one of
what I can get, right?
This is one of the reasons why I think there might be more story, because I mean, it's the other crazy thing is that Xal'atath and her Void forces go down through the well. Like, they leave through the well, and then we close it. Whatever portal that was, we close that portal. And I think you're right, maybe about that ritual was about neutralizing the effects. So rather than empowering it, it's more shutting it down. Because, I mean, that's the fruit of the Arkandor, isn't it? It's so that you don't have that arcane addiction anymore. So, but as Rameth says at the end, well, there goes Xal'atath off to our world soul. Gosh, I hope that doesn't turn out to be a problem. Like, are we going to have to end up opening up the well again? Or are we going to go visit the Earthen and ask them if they can hurry up with the that passage to the center of the coreway?
That passage that was destroyed by Xal'atath, by the way.
Yes.
If she wanted to go to the soul of the world, then why did she destroy the pathway to the soul of the world?
Maybe
To make
she
sure
wanted
no
a
one
way
else
we
can
couldn't
get in
follow
there.
her.
Yeah, but she wanted us to go down there because she wanted us to empower Beladar with the void magics, because the emotions would feed into the black blood of the old gods,
So-
which would in turn empower the dark heart.
So I had a very intense discussion with some people about exactly that point, because as I understood it, or the way I thought I understood it in War Within, was that the coreway, the way down to basically the Ringing Deeps and Beladar, etc., that was the actual coreway. And well, the way it was explained to me was that the coreway is actually way more than just that, and the coreway leads way deeper to the actual Titan prison
Yeah?
at the core of the world. And we're basically, it's like, what we had in War Within was the first level of the elevator shaft, and there's like 20 more levels down below that are still completely messed up. And I would expect that we repaired the first floor, and Xal'atath is at minus 19 or something, and that's where we can't get, because that is still completely destroyed.
Yeah, but how come Xal'atath didn't have like a Nerubian forces fix it or something?
Because
Or
well, this is obviously just conjecture, right? Because that would allow other physical beings access to the core of the world as well, while she has the magical access that she created for herself with the Voidstorm and through the Darkwell. We can't follow her right now. We need to now go and find, which I expect personally to be kind of the rest of the plotline of Midnight, that we figure out what the hell Xal'atath is even up to, and then go down at the tail end of the expansion and stop her.
I mean,
But that's
I
for
get
us to find out now, how we get
I get
there.
that part, but my question is more like, we know that Xal'atath knew about the coreway, because she lured us to Kazalgar at the beginning of the War Within. And then she blew up the coreway, but she expected us to go down the coreway because she needed us to fight there in order to empower Beladar with the blood of the old gods and draining it into the dark heart. So my question is, if she had pre-knowledge about the coreway, a passageway to Azeroth, then why did she lure us there if that was so important? Like, I get that she needed power from Beladar, and I get it, like, they rewrote the War Within into Midnight, but it's more, I'm trying to synchronize, like, okay, why did she send us to the one roadway that she needed in order to get to the World Soul, instead of using what she did now with the Darkwell? And I think one answer that somebody gave me is that through the Darkwell, she was able to bypass the protective system around where Azeroth is. But my counterpoint is that it is very speculative. Like, we know that she went into the Sunwell, the Darkwell, but we don't know exactly where or how or what. We assume that she went to the World Soul, but how did she go because the well is like it has a passageway underneath it, or is it the ley lines, or is it magic? And I think more to my point, more to my question, is why aren't more people questioning like what just happened? Like we have one stay a while where they're like, I think Xal'atath went down here, but what about Illyria? What about Turellian? What about all the other people that went down into the dark well? Why is nobody talking about that?
Yeah, no one misses
good.
Illyria and Turellian, not even the in-game characters.
Well,
Yeah, who cares about the Vanguard of the Light? Doesn't really matter, right? No, I think you make a good point. And you guys might have to jog my memory a little bit on the happenings of the War Within storyline, right? But wasn't it that Xal'atath needed the entire conflict within the Nerubians to really kind of get the black blood boiling to be able to drain Baladar? Maybe it was literally just she needed that sort of conflict to be able to siphon the power she needed, and that was it was a necessary risk to put us on like the first step of the correct path down the coreway.
I can definitely see the coreway specifically being set up by the Titans to have major safeguards in it that would prove difficult for Xal'atath to bypass, so she wouldn't consider that an ideal route for herself, and therefore shut it down because she doesn't want anyone to be able to go down there at all.
I like that idea a lot. Yeah.
And so
because it was specifically for like old god influence as well. That's a really good shout. It was specifically to get the void away from her. Yeah. Sorry, I thought it was more. I was like sitting here. Please explain more, Kitty. That sounds awesome.
Well, then, but she still went down to Khazar to get the power so that she could infect the Sunwell. Because otherwise, I assume she would have just gone straight for the Sunwell. But she needed.
So
I was surprised that all she really needed was a Dark Naru. I would have thought, well, pop over to Outland. Isn't there one there? They seem like they're a dime a dozen, but okay.
I think that's a fair point. Something that just sprung into my brain that I'm also wondering about. Consider a what-if scenario. What if Gallywix didn't mess up and didn't lose the Dark Heart to the Ethereals and instead gave it straight back to Xal'atath? The whole Koresh and Dimensius arc wouldn't even have happened. And Xal'atath would have had another probably like 5 or 6 additional steps and things to drain to be able to empower the Dark Heart enough to unleash the Voidstorm. Like, what would have been Xal'atath's plan B if she didn't get Dimensius' power for herself?
I guess Illyria would be the bet at that point, because she was already working hard at converting Illyria at that point. But it's all very much guesswork. I will say, by the way, on your earlier point about going back into storylines, like I do want to make it clear, like if Blizzard goes back into these storylines and they alter it later on, then my opinion will definitely change about things. I was also talking to Sloot about this, about the Sylvana story arc, that I'm like, she randomly shows up and she takes the kill and she walks out again. But if they actually add story that explains a lot more, that's fantastic. But for me, my point is, I would like to know more before it happens, because now I need to form some sort of opinion or judgment on the story that you give me, and it's very hard to do so without knowing what's going on. And it just, as you mentioned as well, it reminds me a lot about how they told it back in the Shadowlands, with a lot of guesswork and a lot of here are some hints, you figured it out.
It's some I think we talked about it a couple days ago, and I have to heavily agree with you that it's a very similar level of annoyance. It's like, I've been hunting Xal'atath for the better part of 3 years now, more or less. Like, tell me a little bit about her. Like, we finally know that she was a child that got disintegrated, apparently. But what else is going on with her? Like, what is her goal except for eating Azeroth for breakfast, right? I would like to know more about this villain that I am so desperately hunting for, right? But
actively stopping as well. That's my whole... People tell me, like, you just need to sit back and enjoy the ride, but that's not what's happening. I'm actively trying to stop her. And who knows? Maybe I'm on her side. Maybe the Titans are dicks and they imprisoned Azeroth, and I want Azeroth to be free. Maybe I'm Team Xal'atath, but You're not giving my murder hobo that judgment or that call to make. I'm just stopping her.
Exactly.
I do think there's a lot of missed
actually,
opportunities
go
with the storytelling, like Eversong Woods. That could have been a great time. There's a lot that happens in Eversong Woods that feels kind of like filler. That would have been a great place to explore the Silver Covenant relationship with the Blood Elves, the elf storylines. They could have built on that as you level up through Eversong, and then use that so that you have a frame of reference. What I found, one of the moments I found most frustrating in the max level campaign is when you talk to the Silver Covenant and the Blood Elves and they go, oh, we've talked it out. There was a lot of fighting and a lot of screaming and crying, but now we're ready to sign this contract. And I'm like, well, you couldn't show me that. You couldn't involve me in that. You couldn't have a quest line where I got to see all this fighting and and telling me after the fact that happened makes me go, well, why was I helping someone build a wine farm when this was going on? Like, can you not invite me next time to the main story plots that's happening?
Honestly, that's a fantastic question. Which actually, I think is a good segue into a topic I was thinking about as well. It's also something that was kind of thrown around or gets thrown around in the community every single time when a new expansion comes out, and it's kind of the position of the player character, and especially with Midnight, it was another campaign I want to say where we were more the wingman rather than the main character, because it very much felt like Arator is the main character of the Midnight campaign, and we're his best buddy, and we're alongside him. And generally, of course, that's always been kind of the big discussion point. Is the main character in World of Warcraft, is the main character more of a wingman to the major lore figures, or can we be the champion of Azeroth? Are we the big hero in this story? And we've had a lot of back and forth, and like Legion did a lot with us as the main character in terms of storytelling, which was very well received. But people also love just these larger than life characters in Warcraft in general, right? Where do you guys stand on this whole topic, and also looking at Midnight as kind of the player character as the wingman to Arator versus could have been the main character? Kitty, I'm gonna toss this to you first.
So I go back and forth between this. Sometimes it's very embarrassing to have all these characters talking to me like I've saved the world, especially if I'm on a new character. I'm like, I've just met you. I don't know what you're on about. Sometimes I just want to be a little guy with a sword running around doing my best, But other times I feel like, why am I being spoken to like I know nothing, like I've done nothing, like I'm the idiot, by these characters who want to tell me off and be superior to me when I'm the champion of Azeroth? I do think it's tricky. I do know that in a recent quest line, one of the Harandar sent me to go get a staff. They had me searching for birds' nests for the staff. And in the end, the person who sent me to go for the look in the birds' nests had the staff, and I had to fight her for it. And I'm going, why? What is going on? Take it back to the original guy, and he's like, yeah, I gave her the staff to test you. And I hate that. I just why am I doing? Why? Why would you do that to me?
You gotta prove yourself worthy of the knowledge of the big secret that nobody knew.
Worthy to people who couldn't even spell their own name until recently, because the spelling of Harandar changed since we were introduced to them. I find it very hard to believe they're this ancient species. And I think that's part of the problem, is a lot of the NPCs don't feel grand to us anymore. I mean, look at the Dragonflights. The Dragonflights used to be these mysterious, scary, all-powerful factions, and they're really not anymore. So if a dragon talks to you now, you're like, oh, well, whatever. I'll see if I've got time for you. And like, who's left that has that sort of mystique? And every time they have someone who might be able to swing it, they get rid of them, or they kill them off, or, like, all of these old characters that people do still respect and admire, we hardly see them. And then they bring in Arator. who he's not really landing, and I really wanted to like him. I really did. But he's tonally a little difficult because half of the time it feels like he was written to be a 20-year-old, and then they only remembered he's actually 40. And he's suddenly the leader of everything. And honestly, Lorthamar was doing so great. I think most people would have felt better if Lorthamar had just been the one leading the charge. So it's like, I feel like they don't
he's not
set these
Windrunner, though, is he?
things.
It's the wrong last name.
Yeah, what is with the Windrunner obsession? Why is it suddenly always about Windrunners? And I like the Windrunners, but boy, they suddenly start talking about themselves as if they're royalty. I suppose they are royalty in World of Warcraft, but like, I feel like if you want to have, I don't think it's necessarily the player must be the champion or the NPC must be the champion. I feel whoever's going to be the important character, it needs to feel earned. So suddenly having everyone talking to you like you're the greatest hero of all time, even if you haven't actually done anything, doesn't feel earned. In Legion, it felt earned because you build that class order hall, and it's very much around your character. It's you are the hunter, you are the paladin. So it's not just you are the vague insert we have here. They took something about your character that you've chosen that is already personal and built on that to turn you into the champion. So it felt like you. It didn't feel like I've just the insert here. And it's the same thing with the NPCs is if someone's going to be an important character, it needs to be someone that has built up a reputation, that has become popular. And I do empathize with them. You can't force people to like someone. They've been trying with Ilaria for several expansions now, and she's not really resonating with people. I mean, I will say I actually enjoyed her when she showed up in Voidstorm. I was surprised. I didn't think I would. But for the first time, I did like her story. Then she gets stabbed, so... Maybe she'll be good in the next patch. I don't know.
Stop liking characters, they'll kill them off. It's like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, give us the list of your top 3 or top 5 favorite characters. Then we know who's gonna die next. No, but I think you make some really, really good points, especially with Arator. And I
think you mean Kitty, yeah, not me.
Yeah, Kitty makes some great points.
Right.
Especially with Arator. I'm still reading through the pre-expansion novel, so I might be missing some extra information. But outside of Arator being basically the adoptive child of Verisa and Lorthamar, does he have any claim to fame, so to say? Like, did he position himself in any way, shape, or form into the higher echelons of Blood Elf leadership and society that would justify him being kind of the shot caller and the guy Lorthamar listens to 24/7?
In the case of Arator, like Arator was a character that was retroactively added. So we got original storytelling where we have an Illyrian Trevelyan to go through the Dark Portal, and there is no mention of Arator at the time. He's then later added with the Burning Crusade, where we find Arator in the inn, and he's looking for his dad because he has this vision. And that's kind of where the question came from, like, oh, where are Illyria and Trevelyan? Because we found everybody else who went beyond the Dark Portal, except for those two. And I think that they had story plans back then. I think there was like a connection to the Ashbringer. I don't remember the full details. But that never happened. And for the longest time, they teased. Nobody's seen Illyria and Trevelyan for years. And then we got Legion. And in Legion, we see Arator added to the Paladin Order Hall, where he is like the catalyst with Light's heart and like reconnected to his father. And he reconnects to his family. And that's what we have from Arator. So that is a lot of, in the background, we know that he's been around. And in that case, in your book, I won't spoil all the details, but I think that the portrayal of Arator in the book is fantastic. It remembers that he's 40 years old. It remembers that he might not have the legacy that his mom and dad has, but he definitely has his own friends, his own legacy, only for that to not be present in the game, which I agree with Kitty. It's a real shame because now the character, and I get why, because, you know, it's the 20-year-old something, that's the audience that they want to hit. They want to see the zero to hero storyline again. And it does give opportunity for us to learn more about the lights. Like, for example, in the Arator campaign where we go into the Paladin, and he goes like, oh, I had no idea that there was more to a Paladin than smite your enemy. And I'm looking at him like, You were in my Paladin Order Hall. You were part of quest lines where I taught you that this is... What do you mean? And he has lines like, oh, I studied everything about the Silver Hands, but apparently not that part that everybody knows. That is part of... Which is really frustrating because I get why. I get why that story point is on the board because it teaches the audience what the light is about and how it's not always kind and it responds to conviction. But it's frustrating because it's used on a character that should know this already. So why not give him a squire? Or, as some have mentioned, why not Liadrin's adopted daughter? Let her have this road to walk. But nah, because they're not windrunners. But that's what we have of Arator up to this point.
Yeah. Yeah, which is, to be fair enough, but I very much agree with Kitty. It just feels a little out of place with how important he is for the leadership. We're literally talking about the leadership of the different elf factions of the Blood Elves. And technically, yeah, the Windrunners are an important noble family, but Lyrath has been dead for forever. Sylvanas has been dead for forever, is quote-unquote disgraced, so to say. Varisa, Silver Covenant, same thing. She is exiled. Illyria, quote-unquote, fell to the void, is exiled. Like, the Windrunners have not been an important piece of Blood Elf leadership in years and years.
But you don't understand. Arator said it, so it must be true. He said that the Windrunners had to show up and defend Silvermoon for some reason. And he was right, because then Varisa shows up and she's like, I really want to defend Silvermoon. I want to defend it so much, I even brought back their crown of the previous king. Why do you have the crown of their previous king in your possession? Why has this not been returned to them yet? Would have been great when, Kael'thas was slain, maybe as a, sorry that your prince died, here's the crown of your previous king. Or maybe after the Isle of Thunder storyline, where they put Garrosh on trial and they're all like, oh, yeah, we're going to focus on Garrosh. Nah, this is the moment. And we're not bribing them, by the way. I'm just giving them this in exchange for something that I want, but it's not a bribe, okay? Anywho, I love the story.
Pro quo if we get something as well, right? No, it's great. It's only quid pro quo if we get an advantage out of it, right?
And that's, again, like, there are some really cool story beats, like, for example, the Zulaman campaign and the build-up on the Shadowlands and Orderly and all that. It's yeah. But these are just things that stand out. And usually when you do these kind of talks, it's like the negative stuff stands out more because that's what you criticize.
That's what you can rant about, yeah.
Yeah, but there are, like, I do want to make it clear, like, there are some quest lines, mainly in the side quests, that are phenomenal quality and that I honestly will say are some of the best writing that they've done ever. Like, there's been so many, and the same happened in the previous campaigns as well, that I'm like, why is there such a difference in quality in this?
What's your favorite side quests so far?
For me, I'm in the Voidstorm with the elf and the human that love each other, and the human is being controlled by the craft, which not only enforces the idea of what happens when a medal is put on you, but he is desperately trying to resist and trying to fight back, and she's not ready to give up on him. So she joins us, and she tries to stop him, and he's forced to hurt her. And so we confront him, and he's like, okay, just end me so I can do what I need to do. And he does, and he takes the light, and he inflames the one who controls him.
Paladins, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you go back to her, and she passed away, and like 2 of the light spirits float up in the Voidstorm to wherever they might go in the light. I'm like, that was a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. Kitty, do you have a favorite side quest from Midnight so far?
I haven't played through all of the side quests in Midnight. I've been really, really taking my time. So I've only played through Eversong Woods and Voidstorm, and I've started in Harandar. And I cannot name one that I will tell you is my favorite. It's actually, I'm sitting here reflecting and realizing, as I've enjoyed Midnight so much as an experience, but there's not one particular quest line that I can point to and say, that blew me away, that blew my mind. Except for maybe the opening when you first go into Midnight and then you cross over into Silvermoon. I really like that. So literally the introduction to Midnight. But everything else, it's been good, except for when it's not. But I haven't quite gotten this is the quest line that is going to stay with me and the thing that I'm going to remember about this expansion yet.
You still need to do Zulaman, you said, yeah?
Yeah, I'm saving that for last.
Okay.
But you're in for a treat. I think for me it's the Draenei quest, the Lost Draenei tribe community in Voidstorm. I was a little bit sad that since I was playing on a character that doesn't understand the Draenei language, that I couldn't understand any of it, even with like a elixir of tongues.
What a cool detail, though, eh?
Yeah.
No, it's lovely. It's lovely that I can't understand them. It's great that they try to really play with the language barrier and manage to still convey the same amount of emotion, or maybe even more emotion, despite this language barrier, which was just a fantastic experience all around. And what I also love about that questline is that some of the characters, if you emote to them during the questline, they emote back to you. And that is something that I think is fairly new. And I will 100% need to keep an eye on with future quest lines now that when Stuff in Midnight pops in, and maybe on a replay of the Midnight campaign, that I need to just try some emotes on some things and characters during questing to see if there's any additional reactions or something.
My mind immediately shot to, I'm pretty sure there was like a classic quest in Darkshore that said emoted a bear in order to make him follow you, but that's neither here nor there. I would recommend, by the way, get like a warlock or a demon hunter, or get a character to come back in there and realize the context that you're missing and how strong that quest line is, that even though you can't read what they're saying, you still understand what's going on. And the build-up, let's not forget about the build-up. Space, Warcraft space. I had coffee, I'm very sorry, but the Great Dark Beyond is waiting for us. I want to go.
Oh, okay. You're not sick and tired of World of Spacecraft and other worlds and exploring strange planets? No?
No, new cultures, technology, worlds that you've never seen before, cultures and all that. I think the Warcraft space is ripe for exploring. Back to your original point, by the way, because my brain is like, hey, this is a conversation we went into about your position as a character in this world. You mentioned now in Legion how you as the hero was perceived well. For me personally, I was not a fan of it. I felt with everybody being super, nobody super. Like, I did the whole, you are the High Lord, here's your artifact. And behind me spawned another 10 people that are the exact same High Lord. I'm like, I don't feel so special anymore. As well as to the position, what is our role in the story? Our role is that fly in the wall. We are there to support the heroes. It's their storyline. Sometimes we get credits. Sometimes we are the Maulwalkers. Sometimes we are the High Lords. Most of the time, it's the story of Jaina. It's the story of Thrall. It's all that.
Yeah. Okay, then curveball question for you maybe, Nobbel. Do you think Warcraft's storytelling in general is better when you're the fly on the wall?
Not necessarily. It depends on what storyline you go through. The issue with making you the main character is that they are giving a overall experience. So, for example, at one point they decided that we could be Sylvanas loyalists, which was kind of cool for an expansion. You could make like choices, and you could be part of Team Sylvanas. Except you all still end up at the same road, which is Sylvanas the bad guy now. So, as a loyalist, haha, you made a wrong choice, is basically what you're being told. And that's the issue when you're making individual storytelling. Now, I will say that, as Kitty also mentioned, the acknowledgement of your character in the storyline is super frustrating, and I don't see an answer to this, because it would mean individual programming and recognizing what your titles and achievements are. But for a Chandris, who I helped get the World Tree to go like, well, human, you sure bring special company today. And I'm like, what do you mean, human? I saved your people. Or Frau, who is like,
I'm
champion.
so
and
disappointed that you're working with the Blood Elves. How dare you?
Right, and it's like, Frau calls me champion. I'm like, mate, I went to your wedding. I saved your wedding. What do you mean I'm your champion? And I get it. It's a limitation of how they can portray the story. But it's also a disconnect as to my role in the world. And I would love for more recognition to be like, ooh, it's you. And sometimes they do. Sometimes they give you, more recently in the Zulaman, won't spoil, but like if you did the Night Phase stuff, then there is recognition for that. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in Legion there were times when you would work with members of the opposite faction and they would be like, I'm not happy with you right now, with your faction right now, but I know you. And that was nice. You feel like, well, okay, technically the factions are at war, but I still get to go do this quest with this person because I'm a unique case. They've worked with me before. I feel that fits in really well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about finding the good balance in the right position for your character, right?
Whereas on the other hand, like I had a different response with Chandris, where they're going on about Teldrassil, and they're saying the Blood Elves didn't help with Teldrassil, and I thought, no. I mean, my goblin was setting fire to Teldrassil at the time. I'm standing here feeling very awkward. Like, I personally flew a bat that had candles on it. Am I the best choice for this particular diplomatic mission? So yeah.
As well as, and this is something that I've had discussions with people. Like for me, it felt really weird for Chandris to be the one like, yeah, but hang on, the burning of Teldrassil. Because for me, Chandris was the one that told her mother, like, you need to let go of hatred, we need to work together. And this storyline has been explored in Shadowlands, in Dragonflight, we got them a whole new world tree. And the argument is basically like, obviously there are still Night Elves out there that are pissed about the burning of Teldrassil, and I agree. But in general, we are given a story, and this is not good storytelling, but this is how they do it in Warcraft. In general, they will pick a character, blame them for the actions, and in general, people have to, for example, Garrosh and the Fedamore in that war, that was Garrosh, was not the entire Horde, that was Garrosh. Or the burning of Teldrassil was not the entire Horde, but it was Sylvanas. So in this case, they made the decision like, nah, we're still going to have Chandris to hold on to this. And in my mind, first of all, this is Chandris, and second of all, it's on the backdrop of a world-ending threat. And I'm like, I understand that someone like Maiev would do it, or any other elf, but to have Chandris stand there and be like, you didn't help us out with Teldrassil, and it's like, yeah, we weren't friends back then. We were at war. Even the elves were ready for a siege of Teldrassil. Nobody knew it was going to burn besides Sylvanas. Even Nephanos was like, you gave what? Come on now. Like, what are the Blood Elves supposed to do? Not go into war? Like, I get that part, but those are the choices made. Like, you weren't there, but that's everything after Battle for Azeroth has been about the Blood Elves and the Horde helping out the Night Elves to go towards that future. The story that was before the Shadowlands, where they were like, Thrall, don't come into our forest until you bring us Sylvanas' head. Like, that storyline has been dealt with. So I found it difficult to dive back into, same with Aphis and the whole Purge of Dalaran. But my question is basically, how did you feel about that? And feel free to tell me like you're wrong and it's perfectly normal for them to be like, we don't want to work together.
I think you make some very, very good points. I'm kind of wondering how much of that was necessarily supposed to be really Chandris expressing this disappointment in the Blood Elves, or this animosity, so to say, and how much of that was a little bit more along the lines of political leverage, because ultimately, a few sentences later in the dialogue, Chandris basically asks for the concession that the Sunwell needs to be shut down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my mind immediately went to, this is more of a like political, not quite intrigue, but political leverage to kind of remind Lorthamar of the position that he's in and their relationship, like remind him of, and to an extent obviously also remind the players that maybe haven't necessarily played Battle for Azeroth, gone through the entire burning of Teldrassil, etc. Remind them what the relationship between the Blood and the Night Elves is, to facilitate that the Night Elves get this concession of the Sunwell no longer being the font of power for the Blood Elves in the long run. Because one side, yeah, it's a world-ending threat if it gets corrupted, but on the other side, it's also something that I would assume considerably strengthens the Blood Elves, which are an opposed faction to the Night Elves, and ultimately a shutdown Sunwell is going to weaken the Blood Elves considerably more than a not shutdown Sunwell.
Hang on, we're not opposite factions at the moment. We're in armistice, right?
Well, yeah, we are at peace technically, but as long as they are opposite, That's,
but then if that's
just
the
where
case,
my
then
mind went to, right?
yeah, but if that's the case, then we would never go towards peace. So why are like that's kind of my point. Like, yes, historically speaking, we were enemies, but we signed an armistice. We've helped the Night Elves get the World Tree back. That's kind of my point. Like, why are we bringing this up now? And I've had the comparison to, for example, we worked together on the Broken Shore, but then there was the feeling of being betrayed. We worked together at the Wrath Gate, but then there was the feeling of being betrayed. I'm missing that catalyst, that spark to make me go like, oh, that's why they're hating each other.
No,
You're right,
I
because
I fully agree.
The last interaction we had was working with them with the murder soul. There's been nothing since then to indicate, and then we were betrayed.
Yeah.
Except for Chandra's being weird about the Sunwell, which
maybe to play devil's advocate just a little bit. We also got to think about, this is not just Chandris as an individual, right? This is Chandris as the leaders of the Night Elf, and she has Maiev standing right next to her, who is like, I hate you, go die.
I love Maiev.
For Maiev, I'm like, yes.
She's so
that is
funny.
absolutely your character.
And you will go around with her, and she keeps going, and another thing. She just moans and moans and complains the whole time. I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you can
so
make the argument that she's a fairly new leader, and she's just trying to consider all the points that would have been raised by her advisors and all the people she represents. And so is bringing it up because she was told to bring it up, essentially. Don't forget to mention this. I do think she comes across as a bit more like Tyrande than Chandris. And it's one of those things where they replace leaders, and then they treat the new ones kind of the same way they would have the previous ones. So they have them do the same stuff. So what was the point of replacing the leader? Like, if the new leader isn't going to be very different, why even go to that trouble?
Conspiracy theory, what if the general outline of this story was never meant to be for Chandris as the leader, but it's more like Tyrande as the leader, and due to the several rewrites of the general story outline that has happened, apparently over the recent years, that things just changed up, and some of the kind of cliff notes that remained for what they still wanted to do got mixed in there, and it's just a little bit of a
maybe, but then
mess
like
to
the
an
whole making Chandris the leader is literally like a little footnote at the end of Dragonfly. It's like, you're the leader now. So, cool. There's no master quest line or lead up to make Chandris the leader. It's they hug it out and they're like, you lead it now.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
I think a good chunk also, maybe cutting back to the quote unquote so a little bit rushed pace of the campaign. Maybe this is also one of the issues of this being part of the World Soul Saga, and the World Soul Saga being a set in stone trilogy, and they do not have time to spend more time on this, because in theory this entire cleansing the Darkwell, uniting the elves, etc. I think you've phrased it very well a little bit earlier, Kitty. This is like this is what Midnight is about: bringing the elves together and saving Silvermoon, and we're kind of done after the first tier with that already, so to say.
On that
Maybe,
note, though, I will say,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm interrupted. Go on.
No, go ahead.
I will say, and this is also something that Taliesin mentioned on Twitter, the whole premise of Midnight is supposed to be about the elf unification is thanks to Madsen announcing it at BlizzCon. You could also argue that Midnight is about plunging the world of Midnight and Xal'atath going for the world soul, and the unification is part of it.
That's very fair.
That was more my question, like, where is the mindset of this was the main storyline, basically?
So...
Oh yeah,
that's actually
okay.
interesting. That's actually an interesting thing, because I've in the last few weeks started thinking about this less than a World of Warcraft expansion as a standalone expansion, because we are so used to World of Warcraft expansions being complete stories in itself, encapsulated within that individual expansion, and we'll wrap it up at the tail end of it. Midnight isn't a a World of Warcraft expansion. It's the second episode of the Soul Saga. So for me, it's a little bit less. This is midnight. It's more like this is the next chapter of the Soul Saga. For me, it's like the Soul Saga is one thing in itself, which also for me, that's how I, for myself at least, explain a little bit more of like. I'm pretty sure we all have seen like some of the complaints, like Harrenhal feels like a War Within zone, and it's
it is a War Within
It is. It's the best
It's War Within
zone.
cut content,
It's not
right?
cut.
But at the same time, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's a War Within or Midnight Zone. It's all Soul Saga zones. It's all
because
connected.
they forgot to fix it.
Well, I think that's
Like there's
I think that's part of the saga. This is, as you say, this is the first time we're dealing with a trilogy, and I think both the players and Blizzard themselves are going through some teething problems. It's the first time they tried something like this. There's going to be issues. I think everyone can agree the War Within really felt it, where they kind of forgot that yes, it is the first chapter of an expansion, but it kind of needs a better through story itself. Like the War Within is lacking a certain central narrative that I think next time they do a trilogy, I think they would maybe do a better job with that. But Harrenhal in a previous expansion might have been cut content because you can't bring it into the next expansion because it's from this one storyline. Whereas with the trilogy, it means that because Harrenhal wasn't ready, they could move it to the next expansion. It's definitely got teething issues. I think it's a shame because whenever I'm in Harrenhal, I'm like, this would have been so great in the War Within. I would have really enjoyed it more, I think. And I won't be surprised if after the whole World Soul Saga trilogy is out, that there'll be leveling guides on how to play through the story of the World Soul Saga in order that will place Harrenhal with the War Within. But on the other hand, at the same time, I can't fault them for being practical. If it wasn't ready in the last expansion, then I am glad that they found a way to bring it into this one. I'm glad they didn't just delete the entire zone just because it didn't quite fit with the story. But I hope that they get better at some of the merging of the storylines. And I do think...
For me,
Sorry.
No, go on.
I do think they built... The idea of the elf reunification was built up too much in people's minds, partly from the BlizzCon announcement, which is a bit unfair because that's just telling you the premise of an expansion, not necessarily what the entire story is going to be. I do think they could have stretched it out a little bit more. Just, they had time. They could have done a side quest line here and there in between, with not everyone having to do it, but enough for people who care, to just sort of explain some of these storylines. It does feel a bit rushed.
No, for me, it's not so much that they announce it as like the elf unification, because I can take story or leave it. I don't particularly set my hopes on, we're going to get a massive story. But if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. And again, the precedence that you set is we got to go somewhere. And so we've done it. Now, of course, it comes with the side note of we don't know what the story is going to bring. They might go back into this. But again, there's this whole our high home, we stand at the well, big moments have come and gone. And it's anybody's guess what the story is going to bring. When it comes to Harrenhal, I really liked Harrenhal, and I still feel that Harrenhal, it fits the overarching narrative because it's very much connected to the World Soul Saga. Now, a miners, I don't know, have you done the whole memory thing of the Harrenhal? Have you done the full weekly things?
Yeah.
I haven't done this week yet.
Do you care?
You can tell me. That's fine.
Okay, so what's really funny is that the weekly events of the Harrenhal are presented as we got this big secret to reveal. Like, ooh, what is the big secret? And after weeks and weeks and weeks, you unlock it. And it turns out that the big secret is Onara is Azeroth. And it's like, yeah, but I already knew that because you had the memory archives in the War of Wind,
yes.
which was supposed to run in tandem with Harrenhal, right? But even funnier is that during the main campaign of Harrenhal, you have a text box with Horde spoiling the secret, going like, Onara, Azeroth, that the Harrenhal call Onara. And I'm like, why didn't you remove that out of the text box if this was your weekly event? What's going on here? Like,
We've also got
Okay, but
Owena literally seeing the Radiant Song when she's talking to her goddess in the previous
Yeah.
expansion. So it's been established for a long time.
There's a few points, not just in Harandar, where I'm like, okay, I like that you're trying to give us like hints, but you're basically not giving hints. You're basically slamming the whole fence into my face, and then revealing it 2 quests later as the big reveal when I knew 20 minutes ago, basically.
And it's not
Which
like, it's not the end of the world, but
fair enough.
it's just really funny. And we have a couple of people asking like, what was the original plan for the Soul? I have no idea. I don't think anybody knows. As far as I'm aware, the way they've announced it is that they had a plan for the War Within. Madsen comes in. He has so many ideas. Oh, there's so many cool stories to tell. We need to spread this out. And to me, what they've done is Undermine was a concept for Battle for Azeroth, which they brought back in. I have nothing to support it, but in my mind, Undermine fits the Battle for Azeroth narrative way better than the War Within. But either way, it's not a bad thing, mind you, but I just think that's what happens. And so, at the end of the War Within, we basically end where we started the War Within. As in, Xal'atath is coming for the world soul, Illyria is super pissed at her, and we need to stop Xal'atath, to which Midnight begins, the true start of the World Soul Saga, where she sets her side on the World Soul and she attacks the Sunwell, and now we flow into the overarching storyline. But here's my take. Like, for me personally, if you ask me, like, why are they doing a trilogy instead of one per expansion? I think that they want to do what they tried to do with the Shadowlands, because they're repeating the same things in interviews as well. They want to wrap up the story. I think that they want to wrap up the story so far, put it up behind it, and start something new. And honestly, seeing how they have a writing room that can create some really cool stuff with new characters, I'm really excited for this. But also really interesting because, other games are trying this as well, and you're bringing in new stuff. That is, in my opinion, the reason why we're getting this trilogy. And it's difficult because, again, the things that they've written on a whiteboard, wouldn't it be cool if Sylvana showed up? Wouldn't it be cool if the elves unified? These are all cool concepts, but it's all about execution. And therein, it's like we gotta go, right? I'm dreading if and when we're gonna go into the Amani patch. I really hope that they're not gonna villain bat Zul'jin. I really hope it's not gonna be Zul'jin 2.0, but we'll judge that when that comes out.
I've been very curious about that because everyone seems to think that he's going to be a villain, but I don't know. I
hope
just
there's
feel like
potential.
I don't think so.
I feel like he will be a villain briefly. Maybe there'll be conflict with him, as there has been already. But I also feel like it's not that Blizzard isn't usually very subtle with their villains, and Zul'jin is something that someone people like for a reason, because he's written very sympathetically. He's not just like Zul'jin was written very much as a full-on villain that people couldn't help liking anyway, just because he's so much fun. But Zul'jin is written very sympathetically. I think especially his attitude towards his sister. He could so easily be the scheming backstabber who wants to depose her, and he's not. And I think that's, I don't know. I mean, it's also, I do like Zul'jin, and I tend to sort of imprint my own desires over the story. The Primus is the jailer. But, even the latest picture that's come out, there's, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's Zul'jara is in the front, and she's got light around her, and she's looking very warrior. And then Zul'jin is in the background, and he's wielding Shadow, which I don't think we've seen him do before, but presumably this is something that's going to happen. And he's in the darkness. And on the face of it, it looks like, oh, that's good and evil. But in this expansion, they're making this very strong point over and over again that it's not like that. It's not light versus darkness. The light has its problems as well. We need balance. They're very into their cosmological balance. And light and darkness balancing each other is very much a theme that they've been wanting to explore for a while.
But at the same time, we obliterated too much of a good thing, right? Like we obliterate the Sunwell into the Darkwell.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying is Zul'jin and Zul'jara, especially with them being, are they twins or are they just siblings? Well, especially with them being siblings, I feel like it's more in keeping with the light and the dark working together, being side by side like Arator, than one has to be the victor and the other one has to be the enemy.
Yeah, I also especially at the tail end of the Zul'Aman campaign, it felt a lot more like Zul'Jan more or less came to an agreement with himself about the whole situation and everything that has happened, and kind of the rediscovery of the lore. And I can see conflict brewing there in some way. But I really, really hope, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I really hope it's going to be at worst a little bit of the siblings continuing to butt heads over core philosophies of the Amani themselves, especially confronted with whatever happens if we get more Amani content, for example, with the next big patch. I'm not sure if that's already like officially confirmed, or if just that like highly hinted at that that's going to be like the
Highly
next big
hinted at,
piece of
yeah.
content.
Highly hinted at, yeah.
So, I'm very curious. I don't want him to be an antagonist. I don't want him to be a villain, because I think that would be a terrible, terrible waste of an incredibly cool character. But, and I'm thinking back to our little discussion last year, Nobbel. I still think there is a big thing to deal with the Cathraxi that is lying buried under Zul'Aman that needs to be dealt with. So I am very convinced that's going to be a piece of content. I mean, hey,
like they moved
raid without another Cathraxi general, you know?
Yeah, they moved Kifix directly under Atal Utek, I think they call it. I do want to make clear, by the way, there is definitely potential for Zul'Jan to be way better than just a villain. Like, it's my fear. What we got right now is a Duratan Ganar situation. Like, both of them have a vision for the people. They just have completely different visions as to what is best for the people. But then you have him staring at the past, literally, like the ruins in the distance. And he's talking about, the Loa abandoned us, and my grandfather was the bestest. What I would love to see is Vol'jin out of the Shadowlands, and Vol'jin becomes like his guiding Loa to teach him what he learned with his whole Shadows of the Horde situation. What were we before we were trolls? Everybody's troll on the inside, and the constant lesson of trolls trying to retake the glory that they had ends in disaster. Like, you can't do that. You need to find some other way. And for Zul'Jan, like he has not even grown up with the Loa that we knew, he has never seen that glory of the past that his grandfather knew about. So I think he's susceptible for that. And then, of course, have like a Xal'atath or maybe like a Kifix whisper to him. So there's potential there. I'm hoping beyond hopes that we're not going to get like a Prophet Zul situation from Battle for Azeroth. A big Cathraxi general and the troll that brings him in is just going to be following to the darkness and all that. I really, really hope not.
And then you bring 6 sub-rogues to just kill him in 20 seconds.
I think also when you introduce a
would be
character
shame.
that people like en masse so quickly, you would be stupid to get rid of them. I mean, I don't think Xal'atath was ever meant to be a character that kept coming back. Blizzard do tend to pick up that people like someone and then they...
Sad in Athreus.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, wasn't the original plan with him to kill him off? And now they're got him on ice. So hopefully there's hope for Zul'Jan. But I do think it's very interesting that it's not just that, for most people, it's not just that we don't want him to die. It's that we don't want him to be a villain. We want to be his friend.
So do you think that they're going to do the unification of the troll tribes as well? Are we going to see like the Zandalari and the Darkspear and the Amani and all the trolls come together?
Well, I think they're working on character customization, which they've said they're working on. It's their big thing. And I think they're prepping all the storyline that kind of, so that when you go into your character customization, you pick, for example, Elf, and then you choose Blood Elf, High Elf. You know, like Baldur's Gate, you know how you choose a character, you choose the race, but then you choose like the sub race, and then you choose the religion. And I suspect that's what they're working on. Pure tinfoil hats, haven't really based it on anything other than I think that would be cool. And I feel like every time I see these unification stories, it's like it feels very much like they're trying to prep it so that it makes sense that you can just do this. Like,
so you're thinking get rid of the factions, yeah? That's what I'm hearing. Like, no Horde, no Alliance?
I would say maybe they're planning to make fewer races locked to the factions. I would still believe that humans would still be something you could only play as Alliance, and orcs would be something you could only play as a Horde.
Wow.
but
Racist.
that you could play an elf on both sides. Maybe like I would think anything that you already kind of have both factions represented, because you do have elves on both sides. You kind of have trolls on both sides with the Harandar. I mean, depending how you define them.
Now imagine your faction allegiance being purely narrative and player-guided choice during playing. Like you don't say Horde or Alliance in character menu, but at some point during leveling and questing, you get the choice of, hey, you've encountered the Horde, you've encountered the Alliance. Who do you want to be part of? Doesn't matter what race you are. You can pick and choose. That's the type of tinfoil stuff I'm here for, man. That's great.
Honestly, it's kind of where we are right now. We got Irvin on both sides. We got Tarn on both sides. Like, yeah. I mean, do we got Tarn on both sides? Maybe. Well, like a lot of them already cross faction anyway. So yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Big changes.
If you think about it, the original Warcraft was orcs versus humans. Those are the only two races that really I think, would feel weird to have them on the other side. But most other, I mean, elves especially, were Alliance until they were suddenly Horde. And at the time, it was really weird that the elves turned out to be on the Horde side, the Blood Elves. So
I'm just pondering, like, would it be a good direction for WoW to go into? Because for me, the spirit of the Horde and Alliance, like, I 100% agree that there's definitely been that direction. All the councils, everybody holding hands and working together. At this point, when I pick my character, I know if it's Alliance or Horde by the little label next to their name, not so much by the model. But for me, it was kind of the idea of we should roll that back. But this is kind of the idea of like, nah, we should go way further and just let it go. And I wonder if it's such a departure of what we knew. For me, the difference between red and blue is such a foundational thing of the story in WoW. Not so much that we need to be fighting each other, mind you. This is always the counter argument that I get, like, faction war doesn't make sense. But more in the sense of you are part of the Noble Alliance or the Savage Horde, and you are part of a family that's trying to carve out a piece in the land that's hostile towards them, or you are part of the dickheads that think that they own all the land. You know, the Alliance versus Horde. I play you when I get to say that. But yeah, I kind of feel like the faction identity was always so strong in the game, but you don't necessarily need to lose faction identity, I suppose, just by having to pick where you belong. It's just the race you have does not so much mean your faction identity. And in that case, they could actually grow a lot further into, okay, what does it mean to be the new Alliance and the new Horde? It'd be kind of cool to actually have that identity back.
I do agree completely.
You open a lot of avenues up. Go ahead, sorry.
Are you sure? Sorry, I kind of spoke over you there. I do agree.
No, you're good.
I do agree completely that something has been lost. And the thing is, they very clearly don't want to go back to, well, as you say, it's not necessarily the faction war that gives factions their identity, but they clearly don't want to go back to the faction war. And part of that is I think it's just straightforward. It's become more difficult to divide the player base. I think it's just not working. You know, guilds being able to be cross-faction, all of that sort of thing has been necessary, and you can't really do that when you've got the player base at each other's throats because of faction war stuff. So they've definitely moved away from it, and I do agree that they have lost some really fundamental things. No, I'm never going to defend the councils. I don't think anyone likes the councils. And
why not? Don't you like it when everybody's just the same? We're all just one blob.
And I agree that, well, what they need to do is like really explore these factions and take it as an opportunity to really go into, well, what does it mean to be Alliance? What does it mean to be Horde? If not just we're fighting those guys. And I'm sorry to say that they have failed miserably at it. I really thought they would have done better, because I have been advocating the end of the faction war for a long time, hoping that it would open an opportunity to further explore the factions themselves. And instead, what it has felt like is we get a lot of Alliance characters and focus, even in Horde areas, with very little Horde input at all. And the Horde in particular, I feel, is in a bit of a crisis point, because for so long, our faction was defined by being the invaders, being the opponents, being the people creating the war. That without that, there seems to be this loss at what to do with the Horde, and so
to be fair, the majority of important Horde characters are either gone or are forcefully being phased out because of whatever reasons, right? Sylvanas, more or less dead. She was gone for a bit because she turned into the villain. Now she's on the comeback ever so slightly. Bane, as far as I'm aware, is still sitting in Oribos. I'm not quite sure what he's up to.
No, he's done something. I don't remember what, but he did something. He got the
really
Dragonflight story where he reunited with
you had the whole
Rexxar
Centaur.
Centaur.
He got really mad with the
yeah.
Centaurs. Yeah. I enjoyed that.
He got really
I enjoyed
upset.
that. Bane should be brought back
good.
as the war chief. That's the only way forward for me. I can't think of another character that would make a good war chief, and I'm so sick of a council. I feel like a war chief has to be an old hand. I saw someone say Talanji, but I'm not sure I like a new faction, like one of the younger leaders being a war chief. Lorthamar, I like Lorthamar a lot. I've really enjoyed his exploration in this expansion. I wish there was more of it, and I hope we get more of it. But I don't see him being... Well, I like his fight with the Aldrin in the cinematic. I enjoyed that. And his facing down Xal'atath.
I like to be part of the intro.
And I like it every time he gets to tell Tyrallion to shut up. That's always a great bit. They do it about 20 times, and every time I love it. But yeah, I would like to see more of actual Lorthamar exploration. But I don't think he would work as that iconic Horde leader. Whereas Bane is a great choice because if the Horde isn't warmongering, then who represents classic Horde? But in peace, better than the Tauren.
Yeah.
I'd counter that with saying, like, this is Warcraft. We're always going to be fighting each other again. Even in the Elf Unification storyline, we have a Haldoran saying, like, oh, I might be working with Chandris now, but make no mistake, I know we're going to be shooting each other again.
That was interesting. Do you think that they might bring back faction conflict? Because I was surprised to notice these little hints that maybe things aren't as peachy as...
I mean, for me, it falls down to the wishy-washy storytelling. Are you going to take it away well, or are you going to keep it done well? Are you going to make the city neutral, or are you going to make the city available for just a portion? Are you going to end the faction war, or are you going to go like, nah, we totally don't like each other, but for now...
I think it's on Blizzard's side, I think it's mostly just a time issue, because it's all these red threads that you could pick and run with. You could turn that into an entire expansion on its own, but they've already committed to this major storyline of the World Soul Saga. And until that is done, we're not touching any of these other threads in a very meaningful manner. We might get them as part of like one of the main patches during these expansion, but it's not that likely. And this brings me to one of the next big topics that I wanted to talk about, basically, is like the outlook, the story outlook, where we could be going, not just with the individual steps of the World Soul Saga, but also like what's the stuff going on in general on Azeroth at the moment? What are the threads left over for us to come back to once we're done with Xal'atath, with the Titans, and all the business of the World Soul Saga, right? Because we have heavy hints that we might get troll content next. We know that, which by the way is also fairly infuriating to me, that one of the next steps for us needs to be we confront Xal'atath at the core of the world, and we know that there probably has to be the end of Midnight, because that's how the Last Titan will come about, as far as we're aware, right? And we're not being told in the main campaign. The only way you actually get told, and you can kind of put together that this is what is going to happen, is a stay a while and listen on the side by two characters that stand on the other side of the Dawnwell, by the way. But where do we think things go? Because, yeah, you could tell the troll story. How does the troll story connect us? How is that the connecting block between right now to fighting Xal'atath at the core of the world?
I've got.
Because trolls aren't necessarily known for being the race with incredible we dig to the core of the world ability, you know?
I've got notes on that. About the previous one, by the way. I will say, like, nothing is impossible with storytelling. They can build up anything. Like, we didn't have a Garrosh beforehand,
Of course.
and Garrosh's been built up in WoW, so characters can be built up. It just needs time and attention. And when it comes to the faction war, I think personally the choice has not been made in order to open up. We can tell a new alliance or new hordes. I think the choice is made. Now we don't have to make 2 individual leveling campaigns anymore, and we could just give a homogenized experience to everybody to save a bit on development time. So I think it's more on development. And I'm not saying like, oh my god, this is horrible, because hey, you know, it's the business, it's the game. But I think that's more the point by it. When it comes to where we're going to go, the 4 zones all have speculation or little hints as to where we're going to go with the story next. And I think Kitty also has like amazing speculation as to what could else with like the Shadowlands. But for the hints in this zone, Eversong Woods has the build-up of the Nagar gathering power and shipping it off to sea. This is in connection to Queen Azshara, in connection to a War Within storyline with a fishy that we picked up, and they were like a Leviathan actually, so there's something down below. And this is also repeated in Zulaman with King Murgle, where we go down below and the Murlocs all of a sudden know necromancy. This is in connection to the Vile branch in Zulaman, and in Zulaman there's a bit of necromancy, but there's also that Atal Utek Empire, which is going to be most likely the next big patch. Underneath Atal Utek, there's this big old Kafraxi general, which relates to Xal'atath's history with the Blade of the Black Empire. We know that there are 5 troll tribes in Zulaman, only 4 Loa. Where did the 5th Loa go? And if they connect this to Jesse Cox asking at BlizzCon about a big old snake in Gundrak, I will lose my mind, and they're going to be amazing.
Nice.
Herendar has the connection to the world soul being missing, so we're going to go down into that containment field, like that is where Xal'atath's going to be. And then the Voidstorm has the connection to exiled Draenei that are being kidnapped from all over the universe, as in there's the Great Dark Beyond. We could go into space.
Okay.
And I'll wait for Kitty to go like, yeah, I got some sick speculation on the next expansion. Here, where's it going to go?
Oh, well, mine is just, I don't think that Sylvanas stuff is necessarily I don't think that's, I think we'll address it in The Last Titan, but I think The Last Titan is the reveal that something's wrong with the Titans. And then from there, we go into cosmological forces in general. So got to fix the Shadowlands because it's not actually death. It is a Titan construct that is trapping all the souls that are supposed to be dying, including Sylvanas. And then, as Nobbel says, space travel, the Great Dark Beyond.
Did you just say we have to go into the Shadowlands? We're going back to the Shadowlands?
No, we're going to destroy the Shadowlands as we know it.
Oh, we're going to destroy the Shadowlands! Yes!
The Shadowlands is a machine. It's a Titan construct. Why else is it running on anima? That's fuel. It's so weird.
Exactly. Break it down. Do you think we're going to wake up Azeroth at the end of midnight?
Oh, I absolutely 100% think that. And I'll tell you why. There is this concept art that they released not too long ago. And when they released it, a lot of the stuff that was in it was recognizable War Within zones. And then there were some other zones. And at the time, people said, yeah, well, they wouldn't release it unless there was the stuff in it is stuff we're still not going to see. You know, either we've seen it already or we're not going to see it. And then Midnight came out, and there's a bunch of stuff that actually matches those pictures. So I think we are getting a glimpse of other stuff that's going to happen in the Soul Saga in that concept art. And there's a handful of pictures in there where you're at the center of the world and there's a giant woman, a giant sleeping woman. At one point, I think it's her eyes are closed, and then there's movement where it's like stirring. So I absolutely think the Soul Saga ends with Azeroth waking. What that means for us and our planets, who knows? I do think we have to figure out something with Elune as well. I am not convinced that Elune is not a prisoner herself at the moment. And I think that's going to become a topic that we're going to have to address at some point, maybe after Azeroth's birth.
For Azeroth Awakening, there's also an old prophecy from the Dragonflight expansion where they're talking about the return of Azshara, and they're talking about all these things that the Harbinger are going to do. And then the last thing that the Harbinger does is like, after the Awakening, our queen is going to make a return. Something like that. which also seems to support the idea of, oh yeah, Xal'atath is totally going to wake up Azeroth. Me personally, I've been wanting to see Azeroth wake up in Battle for Azeroth. I thought that was the brilliant moment. You have Battle for Azeroth, where first off, we're fighting over Battle for Azeroth with like Horde versus Alliance. And they were fighting over the fate of Azeroth, because she was dying, so we had to heal the wounds. And then I was like, easy win, right? Azeroth wakes up, and now we have to fight with Azeroth. But that never happened. We got the N'Zoth Azshara ending. So I'm hoping that Azeroth is just going to sliver out of a little eggshell, and then she yoinks out that sword out of her back, and then the Titans show up, and we have to like get some... And we have to like... Xal'atath been pumping her with void, so she's like, oh my god, the voices! But there's also light inside of her, and life, and order, and we have to bring some sense of like, yo, don't murder us all, please. So we have to fight with her, together with the Titans, and Illidan, who's also back now. And then we can go into the last Titan with the whole, oh, we must rebuild the final Titan. And then we're gonna learn the real threat out there that the jailer always warned us about. What is that threat? Jailer didn't even know, but that doesn't matter. It's gonna show up in the final Titan.
I always kind of categorize that threat as the game is getting cancelled. You know, that's the end. That's what they were telling you about. Like, there's a TV show that does that. It's the Sabrina Netflix show. They have this whole storyline about the end. In the end, they're going to be consumed by the void. And they do. They get consumed by the void, and they make the final season about that. And they were talking about the show getting cancelled the whole time. So I can't unsee that. It's that, and I can't take the and what is to come threat seriously, because come on, you can't keep saying that expansion after expansion after expansion. Like,
it's so annoying, because it's also like a cosmos divided cannot stand against what is to come. So I did everything in my power to divide the cosmos.
Which is,
Bruh.
And it's something they're all claiming, right? Like the Titans have the same basic pitch, that they have to go around ordering the universe because they have to, the cosmos must be united. Rathian is like the factions need to be united against what is to come, but that time what is to come was just the Legion.
Yeah, and it's... Go on.
I personally, I don't think Azeroth is going to awaken. I think it's going to be a little bit more along the lines of, yes, we save Azeroth, but more in a sense of her essence goes over into the world proper and the beings on this world to, so to say, empower them. Or
are you turning Azeroth into a council? Is that what you're telling me?
No, please, no. Oh my word. They're going to make the Cosmological Charter Council.
I think, I've seen some speculation around that recently, right? Azeroth being kind of the seventh cosmic force, so to say. I think that is a little bit more what I suspect we're going to go towards, that we awaken Azeroth, but not in the sense of she now turns into like a Titan and allies with us or something along the lines, but more she ascends to a higher level of being, to a cosmic force. And this is something I've been thinking about in general as well, because we've had so much storytelling around the cosmic forces and the different leaders and powerful beings of the cosmic forces, right? If we think back to classic TBC Lich King and things like that, Naru were some of the most powerful beings in existence. The Void Lords were this rumored all-consuming force that no one can stand against, and the Titans were incredibly powerful in everything. We've killed Void Lords, we've killed Titans. The Naru are flimsy windchime pushovers at this point, right?
To be fair, on a note on that, the Void Lords were changed from killable to almighty. Because we had Void Lords in the Burning Crusade. Like, we fought against Dimensius, and Warlocks summoned Void Lords and whatnot. So that was more swapped other way around.
Well, yeah, they started off less impressive and then became more impressive.
They became impressive, and now they're apparently gone because we killed Dimensius, and Dimensius was the last one, apparently.
But
and
apparently
Xal'atath ate him afterwards.
Now was Dimensius at his full power? Because That's something I've been questioning as
No,
well. It's
I
like when
think-
we face any of these mighty beings, they do tend to be a little bit handicapped in some way. Like they're
Yeah,
not at
in the
their
case
full
of
power.
dimensions, the Void Lords were not supposed to manifest in the physical universe. That was the whole point behind shooting out the old gods. So the first question is like, what is Dimensions even doing here? And now he is the last one, Mr. Madsen? What do you mean?
Where's the
and he doesn't
others?
even
Yeah.
explain anything. He's just like, nah,
Yeah.
that's true now. It's like, what do you mean?
Which
And
no, it's very fair, but overall that puts us kind of in a position of I don't want to call it the shonen anime problem, but it's kind of this like we as main characters we get more powerful and more powerful and more powerful. So the pinnacle of existence, we get so much closer and closer to the pinnacle of existence with every new expansion. It's like every anime does this. They break the ceiling, and suddenly there's this entire new layer of existence outside of the bubble, like that has divine beings that now are the big threat, etc. Do we
But as
think
Kitty
there's
also-
something like that left?
well, as
Is-
Kitty also
like-
mentioned, like for our power levels, usually we also get empowered by like a system behind us. So for example, when we took on Argus, we had
Yeah.
the full-on power of the Titans behind us backing us up.
I mean, sure, but to some extent, it's still the same result, right? Our power level, yes, we have support, and we get powered down afterwards again a little bit, but it doesn't really change the fact that I don't want to call it devaluing, but I can't really think of a better phrase, that we're devaluing the level of these grand cosmic beings to beatable foes. That's what they all are. They're all beatable foes, which is fair enough, but what else is out there? Like, what else is out there? What is happening? What threats are left there? Or is it all just we slug it out with every single cosmic force, even though we know they're all beatable?
You want to take Kitty or shall I?
I think you're kidding on something that has definitely been an issue with the MMO. With an MMO, it's going to happen. With any ongoing story, you always have to raise the stakes, and the stakes can only get so high before they get ridiculous, which I guess is why you get lines like, oh, but what is to come? And everyone rolls their eyes because we just defeated death. Like, what are we, what is to come now? And like, I definitely empathize with Blizzard. Again, I feel like they really need to start introduce things. Look at Xal'atath. Nobody's really like there are issues with Xal'atath for sure. We're getting to a point where we want her to just tell us, what do you want, Xal'atath? What is it? Oh, I want your world soul. Okay, but why? Just give us something. Some clue about what your story is. But that said, Xal'atath has done a whole bunch of stuff that was very similar to the Jailer in some ways, where it turned out she was playing something akin to 5D chess, like her thing with Ilaria, where this whole time she had Ilaria close to her because she wanted Lyra. And we accept it more because we've been there for the journey. We got to meet Xal'atath when she was just a really ominous dagger, and we've got to see her grow. We did a quest line with her here where it's like, okay, she's got a body now. That seems not good. She betrayed us. That seems questionable. And over time, they've built her up into a villain that people like and are interested in. And I think Iridikron is going to be similar, where we haven't had to be dealing with Iridikron all the time, but people he doesn't feel like he's come out of nowhere. And by the time we're fighting him properly, he's not going to feel like he's come out of nowhere because they've introduced him. I think the problem comes in when you introduce a brand new character who's a cosmic threat, and then you got to all be upset because he's a cosmic threat and he's going to destroy the world. That was what the Jailer was. We were just told how powerful he is and how dangerous he is, and you don't really feel it. Whereas Xal'atath and Iridikron, maybe Xal'atath feels like a proper cosmic threat. I don't think Iridikron does yet. He must have plans to be super powerful because he intends to take on the Titans themselves. And as far as I can tell, the Titans are still pretty much the most powerful creatures we've encountered. I mean, we haven't even really dealt with them at their full strength. That was one of the things that I really noted about the difference between the Titans and the Eternal Ones is it seems to me the Titans are vastly more powerful than the Eternal Ones are. And so I don't think it's just a case of power making an enemy compelling. Obviously, we will be facing the Titans. I think the story is going there very clearly, and that will be a case of, well, here's a bigger villain. This will give us some stakes. But with Eredicron as well, I don't think it's necessarily power that makes a villain compelling or drives the story forward. It's just it has to be a story that you can follow, story you're invested in, story you're interested in, villains that you're invested in. And there's more ways. You don't have to be a world-ending threat. There are other ways to be intriguing as a villain. You can be really crafty. You can have a good plan, as long as you actually have a good plan and don't just tell us you have a good plan. I do think, as I said, I pretty much roll their eyes when they say the great threat that is to come. I do wonder if that is Azeroth. It's all the other cosmic forces are really worried about her being born. And they're all trying to prevent that. I think that'd be quite funny. And then we're the great threat that is to come. We're on her side. But it is, they've got to stop with that line. They clearly like the line, and they've used it before to mean the Legion and to mean Void Lords and to mean Old Gods. And
this time you ain't ready.
This time.
The thing also is, it's not the threat to come. Sylvanas says before the end begins.
Before the end begins, yeah. I think that's about the hatching of Azeroth. I do think that's about Azeroth's birth or the end of an era.
I think so as well.
No, I was going to say, I can't agree more with Kitty on that one, where the question becomes like, okay, what is the next world-ending threat? What I really liked about Dragonflight, and I've said this many, many times, a fire-breathing dragon can be as threatening as the titans themselves hovering over the planet. It's all about presentation. It's all about how do you build up the storyline. You can go much smaller. You can have political storylines where there are the House of Nobles that are messing things up. You can have dragons. You can have Cobalt rising up. That can be just as deadly as world-ending as these big forces. Now, when it comes to what can they still draw upon, like for the longest time, they've been drawing upon the RTS. Storylines that they built up back when? 20 years ago?
Yeah.
And we are in a new era. We are a new writing team. We are in a new society. There needs to be new writers out there that build up something new and that get to create their own vision on the story. But that is very difficult because now you're going to have two teams. Like on the one hand, you're going to have those that really liked the product that came before and they want the continuation of what there is. And then there's the idea of, yeah, okay, that's cool. But like there are different people working on this and it's not the same as it used to be. And difficult to line both situations up to get both sides that are going to be enjoying it. But if you're asking like right now, what are the threats we could deal with? There are definitely the cosmic forces. The other side of Azeroth is a potential with like pirates and islands and then the Arathi Empire.
I can't believe I didn't think to mention the Arathi Empire. Yeah.
They're still out there. And beyond that, it's entirely like what do they want to build up, right? Like the Dragon Isles were hidden by a cloaking device, so they can always add new stuff in there. But again, it's a matter of how do you introduce people, how do you build it up, and how do you engage people like, ooh, I'm invested. The Primalists, for example, they were somehow hidden all this time, and then they showed up. It's like, cool, who are these Primalists? And I wish that a similar problem back then, that they explained the Primalists more before we took care of them. There was this really cool build-up of the first one that was like an apprentice to Mogulful. Kura Grimtone, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. Well, we already killed him before we knew anything about him besides what was in the dungeon journal. So again, it's a matter of how do you build it up? How do you pick people up? I'm still curious. How did the Primal Incarnates get their power up? Like they became these super powerful elemental dragons, but we don't know how. We know there was some sort of ritual. We know that Virak found it first, but the details are also what do you mean? Now we have Viranov as an aspect, and the aspects are back.
But doing nothing, doing doing absolutely nothing.
Just chilling,
But they
tears
didn't
back.
get the phone call.
First world-ending threat since they became aspects again. And we're like,
Nowhere to be seen.
why did they have to lose their powers to begin with? Because they weren't going to get involved either way, clearly.
It must be for some. There must have been some setup, because you're not going to tell me that you're going to send Elisand into the Timeways and bring Tyr back and have the dragon aspects just get the powers back for no reason, right?
Talking about, yeah,
Right?
what it, Tyr hanging out in the Dragon Isles, just like he has to think. That is so funny. We bring
He
him
has to have a
back.
big screen.
We bring him back, and he's like, "Thank you very much for bringing me back. I need some time alone." And he's like,
He's pondering his Titan orb.
I need to think.
It's very, very necessary.
"It's a lot to deal with."
Which actually makes me think if we kind of try to spread out the order of events that led us to where we are with the World Soul Saga right now, right? Because ultimately it all started with the old gods coming to Azeroth, then the Titans finding Azeroth, then the Titans quote unquote ordering Azeroth, purging reducing the old god corruption, locking them up into prison. But in between that, you already had Xal'atath that got locked into a dagger and started scheming. Then obviously you get the entire timeline that advances until the War of the Ancients. In between you have the dragon aspects and the primal incarnates that apparently got locked up. And somewhere in there, Iridikron did something to set things in motion, because he had a problem with the Titans and wants to take them down, and he did some questionable dealings. I think it's implied that he did some pact with the Void or something along the lines.
Not necessarily. In the books, the War of the Scaleborn, they very specifically had him make fun of Deathwing for dealing with the Void. He was like, you gave in to the Void to win, you suck, loser. Now, it could be that he was lying and that he was already in league with the Void, but more likely is that he got imprisoned, and that's when Xal'atath was like, hey, listen, right, I see you're imprisoned. I see that you're in a little bit of a pickle. Now listen, I like to make deals. I got this old god buddy. He was in prison once upon a time. I cut him out. Was great. How about you and I make a deal? I think that is more beyond 10,000 years ago.
Yeah. But wasn't it implied that kind of Iridikron's shady dealings were the reason for the War of the Scaleborn in the first place?
The War of the Scaleborn was an overreach of the Titans, really. The Keepers basically insisted that you had to use force if necessary to get all the dragons in check.
I do remember the line you're talking about, and I think they mentioned it in the War of the Scaleborn. Do I have that on Kobo? Was it shady dealings? Oh god, Iridikron's dealings. Nah, there was something, but it ultimately it led nowhere. It was in Nottingburg, and I remember that much. I don't remember the details, but I remember. Oh, that was it. I think. I don't. It was not massively for the arc.
Okay,
but you have
to the
to
question,
imagine
like, how
he's got some sort of power, access to something that's extreme.
I mean, why?
At the very least,
he thinks he can face the Titans, and he doesn't think he can face us. So there must be some link between, like, either he has access to some power, or he thinks he can have access to it.
Or he's using Xal'atath for it, right? He's like, Xal'atath will do it for me, then I'll have my shot.
Well, his line is really when she pries. I'm sure he says he's going to face them, but maybe. He does say Xal'atath will pry the world soul from their grasp.
Like, anything goes. The way that I understood it is that Virenov is like, how can you work with the Void? How can you do this? And he's like, well, the Void is going to give me my shot at the Titans. So I kind of assumed that he was going to let Xal'atath do the hard lifting. And then when they're weakened, when they're crawling on the ground, she goes, I got the world soul power. He goes like kicking them, and then he wins. That's kind of how I took it. Rather than she would just give him my shot at finding them. Because if that's the case, all he has to do is wait, right?
He also doesn't seem that concerned that Xal'atath will get the world soul. I mean, presumably he cares about the world soul. Like, his whole thing is we should be the way we are and not attacked by outside forces. And if Xal'atath wants the world soul, that's just as interfering as the Titans. So why does he seem so blasé about that?
It feels heavily implied that he is operating from a position of, I don't want to call it absolute power, but at least from a position of absolute certainty that his plan is going to work without major setbacks, which, as I think you just said it, Kitty, is basically, it is implied that he has an ace up his sleeve against the Titans, and he doesn't really give a damn about anyone else because no one else can stop him anyway, or rather, he's aware that there's enough going on that if he does nothing, people will just leave him in peace because he's not a threat right now. And I think that's a very interesting position to put him in, but it's also, it's like, yeah, as you just brought up, like how does the whole thing get us there? What level of chaos is going to ensue once the Titans come back? That's a very interesting question.
Is a really good question. I will say, by the way, about Iridikron's motivation, about, does he care about the World Soul or something? Like, he doesn't work from the perspective of knowing everything, because without the Titans, he as a Primal Incarnate would not exist. It was because the Titans sent the Elemental Lords to the Elemental Plane that the Elementals were left behind in Azeroth to transform into Proto-Dragons. So while I understand his whole motivation of, the Titans should not bring order to everything, at the same time, they are the reason why he exists. So I would argue, like, what is his motivation? It just seems to be purely about that whole, you're trying to enforce your order upon me and living some sort of way of life, not so much about the World Soul. Unless I missed the part where it was like, I really care about the World Soul in that regard.
I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, maybe.
But to be decided, I think. Like, when they, if and when they do wake up Azeroth, or if that's going to be the case, we have Xal'atath at the World Core. As you mentioned, a stay a while and listen conversation where it's like, should we do something about this? No, we're just going to chill. All right, cool. Wild ending.
That's
Absolutely
so
wild ending.
Romance.
And then Sylvanas just
It's an
winking at the
Umbric.
camera like you...
It's just Umbric. Everyone else is like, yay, day saved. And Umbric's like,
Yeah, but the
Xal'atath,
army.
you guys know where, like, you notice what happened there. No one. Okay, well, I only just got here and nobody likes me, so I'm just gonna hold my peace.
And we're just looking at pretty in our transmog, be like, that's a word for later.
Wants to
don't
go
worry
hang
about
out with Romath anyway.
It's certainly a very interesting spot to leave us at the tail end of such a campaign quest. Without, like, you kind of want to leave things on a little bit of a cliffhanger. Yeah, sure, but a side comment from Umbric is not really the cliffhanger I would say is worthy of the end chapter of such a campaign episode. And we're kind of left in a limbo of everything is wrapped up. We now need to wait for them to give us the next thing to know what is going on. Like, in theory, you could just say this is the end of the expansion, or this basically feels like the end of an expansion. It's like there's a cutoff here. There's nothing more immediately planned. We need to wait until the next stone gets kicked down the hill, which feels a little bit weird.
Like you mentioned, like, you're 100% right, but not in a satisfying way. It's more like, okay, now wait until the next 6 months. Like,
oh yeah, no, it's highly unsatisfying. It's for me, it's a big issue. Like, I want to know where we go next. I like that at least Umbric implies that we need to go down to the core of the world because that's where Xal'atath with her Void Army now is. But that also makes the entire rest of this expansion so difficult for me because I mentioned it half an hour ago. I love the concept of a troll raid. I love the concept of a troll patch and zone and expand that lore a little bit more and we deal with whatever is going on there. How the hell are you going to tie that together to get us to Xal'atath at the core of the world to stop her in a satisfying way that the storytelling doesn't feel as rushed as the post-leveling campaign just felt? And I am so ready to be surprised, but I am very concerned.
I think it could be really cool if they, for example, had just a short side quest line of Umbric going, I'm pretty sure Xal'atath went to the World Soul and we should do something about that, and trying to convince people to investigate, and mostly just hitting brick walls with people, because some people are relieved the war is over and they don't really want to think about it. Some people still don't really trust the Void Elves, so they don't. Some people didn't see what he saw. Like, maybe just the conflict of Umbric trying to get people to listen, and then the conflict with the trolls begins and everyone's too busy to actually... So at least you've got this, at least someone is paying attention to that, but there's reasons why there's no investigation and that nobody's actually trying anything. Because I do feel like otherwise you just feel like, once again, the hero who knows something's going on but apparently hasn't told anyone, because... And then later, when it turns out to be a problem, you're going to be like, well, I could have told you.
It would be so funny if we go around in a quest line and we're telling people like, hey, listen, right? Sylvanas totally showed up and she shot at Xal'atath, and they go like, sure they did. You got a little bit hit on the head, didn't you? That would be so
That would be great.
funny.
Imagine
Sylvanas is dead. What are you talking about?
Imagine you can go to a Miracil and go to Tyrande and be like, hey, you know who showed up in
Don't do
Silvermoon?
that. What? No, but it's really good. Like, it's the murder hobo, and it's a really good question as to, okay, what do we know and what is realistic to expect these characters to know? Like, we are not. This goes all the way back to the idea of, okay, who gets to experience the story? Is it us or is it these characters? So we have the archives where we have Fauruzan, Dagram, who is standing there doing all this research. You would imagine that he reports back to his mom,
Tells
and that his mom
someone,
reports
yeah.
back to the Dark Islands. That this information is shared with the world. It's like, oh, the Titans did what? This is crazy. That there are more organizations that are aware of this. So that when we go into Herondar, where we learn about the big secret of the Heronir, that they go, oh, wait a minute, we got this bit of information, we got that bit of information. I think, But
Hey,
instead,
Give
we're just...
Dagran a call,
Something
bring
at
him
the
to
end.
Herondar.
Something at the end of the archives quest where Dagran could have said, "Look, just don't mention this for now, because this is a huge revelation, and it would cause panic in the streets if a lot of people suddenly realize that there's this problem. So for now, we're gonna have a few scholars working on it and sit on the information. Just explain why no one apparently knows there's a Titan threat."
And nobody mentioned the day that Sargeras was hovering over the planet and stabbing it. There's just little details that nobody really notices. I will say, though, speaking of little details, really positive about the one. I really like how the elves are being racist again and go like, hey, human. I remember a human who wielded the light. Grrr. I was like, oh, I love my hatred in this game. Great.
I've
think I
very
popped
much
into your
enjoyed walking around Silvermoon as a shadow priest, and I only log into my priest to do tailoring. Like, that's it. That's what my priest character is. So it's not a main, but it's so funny when I log in and all the people are so nice to me the rest of the time. Are suddenly shouting at me and being nasty to me. I like it. It's a great bit of flavor.
Yeah, the added flavor in Silvermoon is fantastic for all the individual classes. I lost my train of thought, but I have a different one. Because obviously we had Azshara be one of the major players in Battle for Azeroth around the dealings with Zoth and apparently her plan was to kill him in the first place, which makes a lot of sense for Azshara as a character. But she had to peace out because she got beaten by us. But she's still out there. What would Azshara's relationship to Xal'atath be? And do we think there is even a potential relationship already existing between the two? Because Azshara had the dagger for a time, right? No.
When you said it, I was like, lovers. That was immediately where my mind shot at.
Oh. Excuse me?
I can answer
No.
from the tinfoil hat perspective. I have never bought the Azshara Xal'atath feud. It's always felt very dramatic. It's always felt very for our benefit to me. This fight that they apparently have had that includes her getting he had the dagger, and after he had the dagger, this dagger gets to us. She hands the dagger to us, tells us to stab his carapace with it. I just don't buy. Well, I don't believe that he didn't want to be stabbed by the dagger. I still tend to believe that it was part of N'Zoth's survival plan. But also, the Naga know all these steps that Xal'atath is going to take, which suggests to me that someone told them. Someone told Azshara. She's in on the plan. And I feel like N'Zoth, Azshara, and Xal'atath are all on basically the same team. Not necessarily because they're best friends, but I still think they're aligned. And until I'm proven otherwise, even more than actually seeing them try to kill each other like I've already seen. So basically, you're not going to convince me. You'd have to show me some more facts that they are fighting. At the moment, I would assume Azshara and N'Zoth are. If not, Team Xal'atath have been aligned with her more than or part of her plans more than we thought, or aware of her plans more than we thought. And if they go against Xal'atath, it wouldn't be on our side opposing her or anything. It would just be they quite like her plan, but they want to be the ones who are in charge. And that's where I could see the conflict arising between these three people, basically. But generally, I would see them as they all have the same basic idea, or same basic. Well, actually, no. N'Zoth, all he really wants is to bring back the Black Empire. He was so happy in his home that he built on Azeroth. That's all he wants. Like, give him a spot, a player home, and he'll be fine for eternity. He's very sad that we took that away from him.
Just give him a corner, a couple of slaves, and he's a happy little tentacle boy.
Very happy.
There's nothing wrong with that, apparently.
Sorry, can we go back to what was the original question? What Azshara's role would be in this upcoming story?
What is her connection with Xal'atath?
Yeah, okay, exactly. Yeah, I'm more on a less of a tinfoil, although I will say, I kind of feel like Blizzard has been browsing the internet for the last few years, and they've picked up on some of the speculations. I'm not gonna let go of the idea that all of a sudden Xal'atath has a recall ability on the Blade of the Black Empire. Where did the blade come from? Why does Xal'atath have it? Why don't you explain this to me? All of a sudden, she can hold up her hand, and there's the Blade of the Black Empire again. It's like, So the idea of N'Zoth downloading his essence into the blade, I'm leaning more towards. Not because I felt like that was more the story of building up, but more so like, she has the blade, so therefore a stronger connection. But when it comes to the original story, what I remember is that Queen Azshara did not want to serve N'Zoth. She did not want to become part of the Team Naga, but it was either you drown or you join N'Zoth. And so she was like, as a queen! And for 10,000 years, she'd been building up her forces and an army. But for Azshara, this is Queen Azshara. She serves nobody. So she wanted out. She wanted to break the pact. And for that, she was going to use the Blade of the Black Empire. And this went on a wacky adventure where N'Zoth showed us in the N'Zoth fight, he knew that Azshara was going to betray him. So the idea is that Azshara gave the weapon came from N'Zoth, who put an eye on her head, and he's like, go little champion, do your thing, I've got plans. So N'Zoth knew, right? And he knew. So he let the blade go to Sylvanas. Sylvanas gives the blade to Nephanos. Nephanos leads all of her forces to the water, where Azshara sinks all of her forces. He gives the blade to Azshara, as there was the bargain. She was going to take care of us, and Sylvanas was going to get rid of a whole bunch of opposition, like the heroes of Azeroth. But Azshara bit off too much that she could chew, because she couldn't just instantly wipe us out, which she could have done. She could have brought the waves down, but she needed us. She needed us to open up the Titan prison, what was keeping us off imprisoned, and she needed us because we had the Heart of Azeroth. So we go into the Eternal Palace at the final confrontation, and she drops some lines of Il'gynoth like, haha, the King of Diamonds been made upon, and N'Zoth is broken out. But it was a little bit too much, because in her mind, she was like, okay, I'm going to use these champions to break open the prison, I'm going to wipe them out, and then I'm going to murder N'Zoth. But she overestimated herself, as she's done before. Once upon a time, Azshara thought that she was going to become the consort of Sargeras. She bit off too much that she can chew. And so, Azshara on the floor is yoinked back by N'Zoth, and he's like, haha, I knew you were going to betray me. Now, What I can't explain is why N'Zoth would let her keep the blade. I find that part really weird. But then I also find it really weird that we just let Azshara walk away when she gives us the blade. Why don't we stop her and kill her? But that's obviously because we wanted to use Azshara in the future. There's no real reason for letting her walk away. But either way, now we got the blade, and Raytheon has exactly what he needs in order to get to N'Zoth. He is taken over from Azshara's original plan. We are going to murder N'Zoth. He opens up the carapace, and in that cutscene, the blade blows up. He looks at his hand, and he's like,
where's
the blade is gone.
Yeah.
The blade is gone. It blows up. And from there was speculation like N'Zoth downloaded his essence into the blade, to which I always asked, where is the blade? In the cutscene, it's gone. But apparently the blade still exists. So does Xal'atath have a...
Doesn't Lore Walker Cho mention the blade disappeared? Nobody's seen it since when he's recounting it?
Maybe. I would have to go back into the lore walking.
Yeah, I need to double check that. I feel like he did, but I might be misremembering.
But either way, Azshara up to this point has made it clear that she is not Team N'Zoth. She wants N'Zoth dead. N'Zoth knew that she wanted him dead, and he double betrayed her. And she went like, okay, I'm going to go to the real throne of power. That was her final line. So we were like, ooh, the frozen throne. We are going to go back to Northrend in the final Titan. Is that where Azshara is going to make a return? Maybe. We also got, which I find really cool, one of the Void Elves, Lady Darklan, has Azshara's voice, and she's constantly sitting on a throne with like tentacles around her. I would find it really funny if Lady Darklan is actually Azshara, that she infiltrated the Void Elf forces.
That would be so great.
Oh, that's out
and
of
she
left field.
definitely has Azshara energy. Yes,
right?
I would love that.
And she's constantly with tentacles fighting. I'm like, oh, this is such a slam dunk. Let's go. But for me, I would say Azshara would be against anything that wants to control her, and the Void has shown to control her. But if Xal'atath is like, I don't want to control you, I just want you around, sure, why not? Then she could be on Xal'atath's side. But in essence, Azshara is always for Azshara. That's always been the thing.
Her prediction is that Azshara will rule land and sea or something like that, which suggests a promise from Xal'atath. Once the Harbinger's done all the stuff, Azshara will get to rule the sea. It would be unbelievably stupid to trust Xal'atath, considering I don't think she has ever made good on a deal, but that could be a deal that
On the other hand, it's not that Xal'atath has never done good on a deal. I think Xal'atath is very much one of these fiendish deal makers, like one of these monkey paw deal makers, where you get exactly what the technicality of the bargain promised you, but it's generally not exactly what you intended to bargain for. Saladar, one of the prime examples from the most recent raid, he got exactly the power he was craving, but it was not exactly what he needed.
Which, now you mentioned it, is still so weird. That whole sequence is still so weird. Help me out on this one. So we beat Salhadar in the Mana Forge, to which Xal'atath eats him. She then, afterwards, for some reason pukes him out, lets him get reinforcements to fight her army, to then whisper to him and be like, join me willingly. Okay, so from that, I would say she wants him willingly on her side. But then on the campaign, she doesn't care what he does. She just orders him around anyways. And his allegiance to her makes no difference to what he's doing, right?
No, he has a role. He corrupts a Naru for her. I mean, we blow that Naru up, and she gets Lura instead. But the initial plan is that during the Voidstorm quest line, we assault the Shadowguard camp that has this Naru that is being corrupted in the middle of it. And that's what Xal'atath is, what Salhadar is there for.
Yeah, but why is she talking to him like a slave if she went to all this trouble to make him willingly be on her side?
Because it's easier to force someone. Well, this is just me, my own conjecture, right? But it's easier to force someone into perceived servitude that they get something out of than fighting them and breaking their spirit and enslaving them to try and force them to do your bidding. So, yes, she sucked up Saladar in the Mana Forge. I assume it is implied that either the majority of the rest of the Shadowguard, or at least a good chunk was absorbed as well by her. And instead of
What?
using their souls as energy,
Whoa, hold up.
but
Does that
it
happen in the
is-
raid, or is that just imagination?
so absorbing the Shadow Guard is just my
Okay.
imagination, because
Otherwise, I was like, oh snap! I missed
There's-
RP in the raid. I gotta go
Xal'atath-
back in.
no, Xal'atath has a voice line in the raid already. It's right before you go to, I think it is Araz, where she says, "Do whatever you want in here. I have my own plans for the Shadow Guard." I think that is literally what she says. So I'm kind of conjecting that either she absorbed the Shadow Guard and stored them for later, same as she did with Saladar, or she just let them go and put them aside in the Voidstorm to get them later. But basically,
I have
where
to.
where I'm getting to is that I think she saved Saladar for later, pressured him into a corner, and then offered him basically the same deal Azshara got. You either drown or you serve me.
Yeah, that's what she also is. But to your point of it would be easier for her to give him a willing choice, we have the Shadow Guard, who are literally ethereal souls that are being bound by the void and are forced to serve. So why, on the one hand, are you building up a storyline where the ethereals are clearly unable to resist you, and on the other hand, you're like going through all this trouble to make him willingly serve when... And I'm not saying that it's not cool to see her monologue and do that cutscene. I'm more saying, if you're going to do that build-up, then why treat him like a dog and as a slave? Why not as an ally that's desperate to try and serve her and failing? I don't understand the connection between the storyline there. And we do have side quests in Midnight that shows that there are those amongst the ethereals that can fight back. But more to the point is I don't understand why. Like, obviously, it's the narration of showing what Xal'atath is. It's her opportunity to tell him, this is who I used to be. I get that. But you can do that and still have it play a part in the story instead of just having him be who he is. Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely. I agree that the handling of Saladar as a character and the whole thing is a little bit confusing and probably could have been done better.
I am
But-
confused about where that whole scene happens, because we see her absorb him in the Dark Heart, and then we see the scene with her. So, did he escape? Does that scene
No,
happen
she doesn't put him
within
in the Dark Heart. No. So
Doesn't she?
in the beta, they had a quest line where they literally said like she ate him in the butt in the Dark Heart, but at that point in time, Dimensions was still in the Dark Heart. She just ate him in her being. And then we got another cool detail. Hang on.
Oh,
We've got the collector's edition art book, right? That also speaks about Xal'atath and the Dark Heart and how all of that works. And in the collector's edition art book, they say... if I get the... Sorry, I need to find this page. Anyways, in paraphrasing, they say something in the direction of the Dark Heart. Oh, here we go. With the Dark Heart destroyed, Xal'atath has turned to other means for power. On the remnants of Karesh, she consumed her former master, Dimensions the All-Devouring, providing her with both fathomless power and an army at her disposal. So this one also goes with the idea that she ate Dimensions in her own being, not the Dark Heart. And then her ultimate goal remains unclear. Would she consume the world's soul to add Azeroth's power to her arsenal? Or does she seek to use Azeroth as a staging ground for some new age of darkness? Whatever her desire, one thing remains clear. She must be stopped, whatever the cost. But then, we've got Blizzard on presentations that go like, Xal'atath has now stated her intention. And I'm like, no. that's I want to know.
well, she intends to do something with our world soul. We know her intention, but we don't know exactly what that intention does in the long run. But also, the Dark Heart feels more like a temporary MacGuffin for the War Within than anything else, because as we see from one of the initial cinematics for Midnight, as soon as the Voidstorm is unleashed, the Dark Heart gets tossed away. It doesn't matter anymore. We even get the depleted Dark Heart for the meta achievement of the War Within as a housing item. So it's clearly implied that she doesn't have the Dark Heart anymore and she doesn't need the Dark Heart anymore. And I wouldn't be shocked if basically the way the Dimensius storyline in Karesh was concepted kind of clashed a little bit with their original intentions, and the Dark Heart was kind of added afterwards as a proper MacGuffin to make things work a little bit better.
I feel a little bit that Salhadar's story has maybe happened slightly out of order, or he was added to Koresh, because otherwise I just don't understand the how she went from absorbing him to fighting him on a where is it? Is it the Voidstorm that she's fighting him on?
Oh,
Or is it Blaze
And here's
Edge
the thing.
Mountains?
yes,
Here's why it hurts, and this is why I'm like, I can see what you could have done, is why not use the Locust Walker? And have the Locust Walker join your side, and have the whole impact emotion with Valyria. So, oh my god, that's the Locust Walker.
It would have been horrible. I mean, great,
Right?
but like devastating.
imagine you kill off Locust Walker right before the assault on the Void Spire to really infuriate Illyria, you know? Here's a thought, though. What if the entire storyline around Salhadar, and the cutscene we get, the flashback cutscene we get with Xal'atath in Voidstorm, in Voidstorm, what if that is actually back in time before we go to Koresh at some point? In between, it is settled somewhere in between Xal'atath no longer ending her service with Dimensius and us coming to Koresh. So she puts Salhadar into a corner and offers him a deal that he very unwillingly has to accept. Then we come to Koresh, Dimensius gets resummoned, and Salhadar, seeing his old master return, breaks his vow to Xal'atath and fights us in the Mana Forge. He gets beaten. That's why he is so shocked to see Xal'atath and panics after we beat him and he's getting absorbed, because he literally has a voice line of "Xal'atath, no!" and then gets sucked up.
Yeah, and she says,
Forward
"Lucky for you, I recognize a
forward
good
to the
service."
Voidstorm.
As far as I remember, we thought about it with the timeline, but Xal'atath in that cutscene mentions like midnight comes for Azeroth, something paraphrasing, which definitely seems to be a direct implication. Like, okay, we're setting our sights on Azeroth right now. Whereas with the War Within, Salhadar didn't play a part in that. He was on Koresh, so he didn't come for Azeroth. So if that was her line, that's a really weird thing to say to Salhadar, and then not like the
it?
continuation there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Is it though when her plan is to use Salhadar in the Voidstorm anyway? And as we discussed earlier, right, the fact that we went to Koresh and had to deal with Dimensius was an accident in the first place, because it wasn't intended that the Dark Heart gets broken, has to be repaired by the goblins, then gets handed to the Ethereals, and Xal'atath needs to go to Koresh with us to fix this situation.
but that's exactly the point. Like Salhadar, she tells Salhadar, she floats in front of her with a whole devouring host, like midnight comes for Azeroth, right? So that implies that she comes for Azeroth, which she does.
Yeah.
But no Salhadar.
Yeah, Salhadar's in Koresh. He is only on Azeroth now. After that cinematic, he was hanging out in Koresh.
No, he's on standby. He's on standby in the Voidstorm. As are
Now he is,
all the
but-
other forces.
No,
of her
he was on
devouring
Koresh. He wasn't in the Voidstorm.
No,
No, I mean timeline-wise, he makes the deal with Xal'atath, then is on standby in the Voidstorm, then comes to Koresh when the Shadow Guard gets their hand on the Dark Heart.
he is the leader of the Shadow Guard.
Yes, and he is in the same vein that Azshara is trying to backstab N'Zoth, he is trying to find backstab Xal'atath, and the best way to backstab Xal'atath is to bring back his old master, who is a more powerful being than Xal'atath.
Yeah, but Xal'atath doesn't want dimensions. So the argument is that when Xal'atath tells him midnight comes for Azeroth, what she actually means is, but not for you. That she tells him that off screen. She then takes not her devouring host to Azeroth, but an Nerubian army. She leaves the devouring host there on standby, instead of the sequence of midnight comes for Azeroth, and so midnight comes for Azeroth with the devouring host and Salhadar. That's more my point. Like it's not impossible that your sequence of, this is when she
Yeah.
recruited Saudar is possible. But if you're arguing between those two, I would say that it makes a lot more sense chronological for Midnight Comes for Azeroth with the Devouring Host, with those Ephidials that they blast down, rather than what we saw happen, which is Xal'atath comes on her own, she infiltrates the council, Dalaran blows up the Nerubians, the coreway, into, there's Salhadar with Karesh. That's... Yeah.
I think that's one of those topics we probably can talk and theorize for another hour about. Why don't we make the agreement? If any of us, for some reason, have the opportunity to talk to someone at Blizzard, maybe Maria Hamilton is available for an interview at some point or something along the lines, why don't we just ask where on the timeline that whole interaction takes place? And
Just sort of.
I'm sorry, if
Then-
I get the
then we
chance
have
to
a
talk
clear
about that,
answer.
I'm not gonna ask that. I'm gonna ask, who is the ball baby? Why is there a light crystal star on her neck? What happened to her people? Are these
Yeah,
people blown
what's
up by
going
the
on?
ultimate doomsday weapon of the Voidstorm? Is the Voidstorm our homeworld? I got a lot more questions than Salhadar. I don't really care about Salhadar.
I want to know when the cinematic falls, and I suspect that if I do ask them that, they're going to look at me like, it's not a question. We want it to be asked. We don't know. We had the cinematic. It had to go out. We're not going to dump that. Yeah, I don't know.
It's an interesting topic, I think. Generally, I think one of the highlights for me for Midnight is just the fact that once again we have a ton of new lore to talk about and speculate about, and as frustrating as it is, with the campaign being as open-ended as it is right now, it still leaves us with a lot of room to speculate where we go next and put things together. Like, we could go to Azshara, we could do something with the World Soul Cradle, we could go to the Troll Island, or we could just go straight for the core of the world. Who knows? At least there's something happening, right? And I'm also saying this, it intentionally might feel like a little bit of a wrap-up, because we're 2 hours 20 in. I don't want to keep you guys here for the entire day, even though that would probably be a lot of fun. So I think just for a quick end of the little chat here, Nobbel, coming to you first. How excited are you for the next steps of the campaign? And if you were to announce the next campaign chapter right now, where would you say you would want to go?
Oh, that's a good question. How excited am I for the next chapter? Like the big one? Oh, very excited. If it's truly going to be the troll patch, I'm really excited about Zul'jara. Zul'jara, as we didn't even really talk about her, is one of my new favorite characters added to this whole game. I love Zul'jara. In a world where everybody is so deep into their feelings, there's Zul'jara. Like, hey, Azshara, you ready to fight? My blood is pumping. Let's go. I love Zul'jara.
I'll never pass up an opportunity to raid the Sunwell.
Even with just a cameo, just
That was a
owning
great
like
one,
that. Yeah. And also the Heronir dropping a root on the way. Like, hello, we are here as well. We played a part. So I really am looking forward to the troll patch to see what they got going on there. But again, like if you're asking me like where do you want to take this? I want to take this into the part where I know what Xal'atath wants. That's the one that I would like to announce. Because I kind of feel like that is the main thing that's in the back of my mind. Like I still don't know. I don't know.
That's fair. No, I can get on board with that. I'm gonna toss the same question to you, Kitty. Where do you think things are going? Where would you send the story next, and how excited are you for it?
I definitely agree that we're probably going to the troll patch. I think everyone has agreed that's what's happening. It's pretty clearly communicated in game, and I think it would give people whiplash if we didn't. So I'm looking forward to that. I also am a big fan of Zul'jara and Zul'jaan. I'm worried about it as well, because some of the writing about the conflict between the elves and the trolls I have felt has been a little bit ham-fisted, and I'm hoping we get some more good writing and less everyone's friends now. Hooray! Let's not dig into this too deeply. I think there's so much. when I was saying before, like, I don't necessarily want a faction war, but I really want conflict. And I think there's so much good conflict between the elves and the trolls because it's one of those conflicts where you can't just go, oh, these are the goodies and these are the baddies. And I like that sort of conflict where people have to explore these narratives deep. They have to go into them more deeply. It's one of the reasons I like Xil'jain and Xil'jara is because Xil'jain makes good points. He's definitely wrong about stuff, but he's right about stuff as well. And I hope that we get like some really, like we examine that properly. And it's not just, oh, he summoned an old god minion, kill the minion. You did everyone's, and the world is saved, save the day. Like,
Please, not Prophet Zul again. Anything but, please.
Please, let's not have the rehashed same troll storylines we've had before. Let's do something more interesting.
I do like that thought. Also, Kitty, your top 3 favorite characters. We're gonna need that top 3 real quick.
Xal'atath, Sylvanas, and N'Zoth.
There you have it, guys. That's the next 3 characters that are gonna die during midnight. They promised us murder. They promised us murder. They promised us that a lot of major characters would die during midnight, and so far, there's a distinct lack of bloodshed for my personal tastes. But who knows?
Illyria and Trellian are totally dead, wink wink.
Yeah, sure. They're just not sitting in Xal'atath's pantry and eating all her, I don't know, beans.
We've seen characters die. It's just not sticking. We've seen Xal'atath die. We've seen Illyria get stabbed and fall to the ground. Like, the death part is happening. It's just they're not dying. I don't know, maybe something's wrong with them.
I mean, even if they die, they'll just go to the Shadowlands, and apparently you can just pop out to fight someone in the Sunwell chamber anyway if you go there. So
you can get vaporized and you can come back. It's quite like all the characters in World of Warcraft are basically Rasputin. It doesn't matter what you do to them.
I mean, that's very fair. I'm also super excited for wherever we go next, because I think as we discussed, there's a lot of very interesting plot lines that they have laid out for us with this leveling campaign already for midnight. I'm a little undecided, and I'm starting to realize we haven't even talked about the Rift of Aln at all, and all the implications with the Emerald Dream and the Emerald Nightmare, etc., etc. We might have to do another sit down at some point soon. But I think I personally would send the story either to Azshara or something with the Rift of Aln and the Haranir, because that, for me, makes the most logical connection to reaching the deepest parts of the planet to confront Xal'atath at the tail end. Where I just don't think the troll storyline...
They added nature gear on the trading post this month. You know, the plant mount and all that, and the slug. I'm like, could we go into like the proper life lands? That would be cool. If that's where like the proper gnomes are living, sign me up.
Interesting thought. I do like that. If I could just announce a next big patch, I'm gonna throw a curveball and just say I'm gonna make it something just completely not necessarily immediately Xal'atath and Midnight related. I'd bring in a storyline about Astalor and his connection to Kel'Thas and bringing Daddy D back. I think that would be really, really fun.
I heard the sick speculation about that the other day. Right, we got Sorry, I'm jumping in. We got Sylvanas jumping into the Sunwell chamber, right? Somebody mentioned, we got all this anguish. What if they could have used all that anguish to power Kil'Thas to get him into the Sunwell? Because anguish is all emotional stuff, right? And Revendrev had all this emotion like lust and sin that you had to overcome. So Kil'Thas would be the master of anguish. And he'd go like, Salama Ashalalore, and fireball Xal'atath and make it go away. Instead of have Sylvanas show up. But they could still do that. Justice for Kil'Thas is what I'm saying.
Fellow Malorn. But yeah, no, I think that's good. I like that. Great closing words, Nobbel. To wrap it up, I must thank you two so much for joining me today. This has been so much fun. I think we should do this more than like once a year. Well, I think we'll chat, see what we can do. But Nobbel, where can people find you on the internet?
Nobbel87 on the YouTube, Warcraft lore videos where I cover the campaigns and the stories, and we're also going to be diving into what might come. And coming Monday, there's going to be a 3-hour lore compilation that you can sleep to. Although I don't know how much I'll be yelling in the video, so I hope I don't give you nightmares, but that is definitely coming up.
Wonderful. Yeah, definitely go drop Nobbel a follow if you haven't already. If you haven't already, you're missing out. But also, Kitty, where can people find you on the internet?
At Discordian Kitty, pretty much anywhere, mostly YouTube and Twitch. And yeah, I'll have a new video, maybe on lore, maybe on player housing next week.
And for lore lovers out there, if you want lore videos from Kitty about how N'Zoth has been downloaded into Illyria, or how the Primus is actually the jailer and the jailer is the Primus, and just sick ass, what is happening with the Shadowlands, go check out Discordian Kitty's channel. Wonderful speculation and great lore videos.
Thank you.
Yeah, highly recommend. But yeah, I've been Lythi. You can find me, obviously, on my own channel, streaming on Twitch. Once in a blue moon, I upload like some random video on YouTube. So, I don't know, maybe drop me a follow there. But generally, I do esports. I stream a lot of raid content, etc. So, if you want to drop me a follow, you're more than welcome. I'd love to see you guys. And I think that's going to be already it for us for the chat for today. Again, thank you two so much for joining me. This has been a ton of fun. And everyone else, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. A great start into the weekend, and we hope you enjoy all the lore to come. Again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Make sure to follow
Thank
Lythi.
you.
Great podcast, great host. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Ah, beautiful. That's the recording done, and the official part is over. Guys, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
The after show now.
Yeah.
You sound so surprised. No, but
I had
seriously,
a
like
great
your
time,
your
thank you.
N'Zoth downloaded into Illyria video. I love listening to that. My guild
Thank
talked
you.
about
So
you
good.
yesterday, Kitty.
I know I'm stretching, but like I was like, it's too fun a theory not to go with.
Damn right. Why not? That's the whole fun part about speculating. It doesn't have to make sense. As long
Yeah.
as it's good, cool ideas.
I'm curious what we're gonna get with the Arathi Empire once the World Soul Saga is over. If we're going full-on Warhammer with those guys, you know, bring in some Chaos Gods,
Oh
maybe.
yeah,
That
the
could be
Arathi Empire.
I wonder if they'll dive back into the prophecy part of things, just like the Child of Shadow and Light and the Emperor using prophecy in order to manipulate the timeline. Also, with the whole Sunwell teleporting us being being Azeroth, we got Baladart teleporting the Arathi down below. There's connections there.
I wanna, the cosmological chart honestly irritates me, because it's so after the fact, like a loon. What is a loon? What cosmological force? They tell us she's life, but she's got all this history with the light. She's got connections with the Titans. Why is one of the 5 Titan pillars a Terra V loon? Why is her sister in death like?
Yeah, and if the
Things like-
Shadowlands as the realm of death, right? They're implied to be kind of the cosmic realm of death, right? If they're already ordered and a Titan construct, so to say, because I very much agree that is probably what it is, that it is a Titan construct at this point. What about the Light Lands? What about the Life Lands? What
have
about
we
the
given
Chaos
up on the first
Lands?
ones? Have we just given up on the first ones and just embraced like fuck
Wasn't
it, that's
it-
just the Titans?
So I think the first ones are the universe, not just gods, but the universe itself. That's why Chronicles 4 says they think their names are life, death, order, disorder. I think the realms are the first ones, and that Azeroth is the 7th one. But I don't know how
But
that
didn't they go-
translates.
Didn't they go with the
I
idea
feel
that,
like-
that the first ones made like all those arrows?
Isn't
Yes.
it heavily implied
Yes.
that the Titans are the first ones? But I could also imagine that
The Titans.
because so much of the Shadowlands is made by probably we're just basing off of the assumption that it's all made by the Titans, right? What if the Titans are supposed to be the progenitors of the Shadowlands, but they've only kind of elevated themselves into this position. They aren't the actual first ones. They're just pretending to be the first ones, kind of along the lines of when the Titans got there already was this legend of these progenitors, of these first ones that are the creators of the universe or something along the lines. And the Titans just stepped into that role and kind of buried everything else.
Well, there's all this.
That's why I asked earlier about the cosmic forces and where do we think is the next level of this bubble. Are there divine beings past what we have at the moment? First ones could be in there.
But then what's the point? Like on a meta storytelling, what's the point if you got the Titans in your storyline? Why bother with adding these mysterious first ones that nobody knows fuck all about, and we got this ethereal broker in the dungeon that gets the actual power of the first ones that are hidden on Azeroth? Like, what's the point?
Because you need to set something up for after the World Soul Saga where you get rid of the Titan corruption on a lot of the Cosmic Realm. Or you start to get rid of the Titan corruption. You gotta lay the first foundations for what is out there in the Great Dark Beyond outside of the Titans.
So the idea is that we got the Shadowlands that are forged by the first ones, and then the Titans come in and they steal credit for the forging, or they pretend to be the first ones.
They
or what
remake.
the first ones actually
They
remake what the
the
first
Shadowlands.
But the thing is,
Okay.
the Odin book says that the Makers gave the Titans wonders in Zereth Orders. But the Eternal Ones are not allowed in Zereth Mortis. So either the Titans got special privileges that the Eternal Ones didn't get, or someone's lying about something.
So one of my personal long-standing theories is that the Titans, on the baseline, the Titans are just incredibly powerful vessels. And all the Titans that we currently have are more or less corrupted by order. Some more than others, like Ionel, for example, is a little bit more on the life-aligned side of things. Sargeras is more on the chaos side of things. But the rest of them are all more or less order-aligned or corrupted, which is why the majority of the universe, especially because they're all kind of under Aman'Thul's boot, right, is so
I mean, that's an
centered
assumption.
around order. It's just a theory.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I did
alright.
briefly toy with the idea that the Titans wanted to replace the first ones and were trying to make a life, death, order, disorder, light and shadow Titan. But it fell apart quickly because I can point to a life Titan, but I can't really point to all 7 or all 6 forces in the Titans. I mean, Aman'Thul's order, sure. But like Argus wasn't the Titans making him a Titan of Death, and Sargeras is supposed to be their enemy, so it wouldn't be them making him the Titan of Fel,
Sargeras is
unless
their
they
Chaos
were
Titan.
unless they were playing
but he wasn't
5D
always the case,
chess
but-
and did that on purpose so that Sargeras would run Fel, but he's not supposed to be their ally. So
I feel like the entire thing is like the entire universe of Warcraft is in a sense similar to how the Warhammer universe has the Chaos Gods and the Great Game. It's the same to an extent with the cosmic forces in the Warcraft universe. They all fight for power and supremacy. But ultimately, on average, across the entire timeline, it is a state of waxing and waning of the powers, and ultimately it's all in balance in some way, shape, or form.
I'm still not over the part where we just given... So they had a storyline with the Titans, which they then gave to the first ones, because let's be fair, the first ones are just the Titans as they used to be. And now we're going back on the idea of like, no, actually that's the Titans now. Like, what?
I still think they've seen that people don't like the first ones, which is why I think they're kind of saying, like, as I say, Chronicles 4 basically says the first ones are the cosmological forces. So I think maybe they're trying to go back
everything's
on...
point of view, ain't it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, the defeat. I'm so
But
sorry.
everything is going. To be fair, everything will always be point of view because it's always going to be the writer's point of view, which is going to change over time. So you kind of
No.
have to have that disclaimer.
No.
No, I'm gonna make a video on this. No, because we got the dungeon journal, and the dungeon journal is not from a point of view. There's not like a dungeon journal writer yet. Blizzard, don't you dare! We have Word of God, and so we
Dungeon
have writers.
journals.
Now, you're
Dungeon Journal sometimes says things that aren't true, though. I'm pretty sure.
yes, but that's because they, meta writers changing. Nah, it's more to the point. Like you're right. Like writers will have different visions. It's always going to be a point of view. But good lord, do I hate the whole? It's actually from a point of view storytelling because there is no storytelling. We're going to be talking about the first ones, but we don't really have anything to talk about because it's all the point of view of a broker, who may or may be wrong.
And Odin.
And Odin, who all of a sudden
Odin,
knew about the
man.
first ones.
I can't wait to kick Odin's ass for the third time.
I still
warrior,
feel
it's
like
like the
that
fourth time?
Dragonflight quest was put in the game for me because about 2 years previously, I asked Danusa, are we ever going to be able to, will Odin ever get his? Because I'm still mad at him. And he was like, yeah, I think so. And then 2 years later, there's a quest where we punch Odin, so...
I genuinely wonder how much they pick up from the internet and implement it. Like talking
think-
about like the Xal'atath dagger theory or what you just mentioned,
Primus is the jailer.
I think they pick up more than we think. I feel like a lot of the storytelling that is happening in game gets not dictated but influenced by player perception, player feedback, and what players like and dislike about the stories, and of course, like the crackpot theories of where could this go, because if you're making a game and you're trying to make this fun for the players, and if you see the most insane theory on the internet, and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna use this because this is so amazing, like. You would be a fool not to push it in a direction like this if it is so much better material than what you're working on, right?
As long as this works and isn't crowbarred in, then yeah.
Oh yeah,
Well-
no, absolutely.
I kind of tweeted and talked about how Sylvanas was totally gonna show up at the midnight and scare off Xal'atath. So I'm kind of like, huh. But it's more because, that's actually the things that they laid out. Like, there's something in the maw and oh my god, the void is scared of her and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's...
What do we think is actually the connection with death and the void? Like, why does the void fear death so much? Is it literally just a thing of the cosmic forces? Like the void is infinite possibilities, and the overabundance of possibility, while death is the end of all possibility, or something along the line.
I love the poetic ending. But then there's also the Sylvanas short story where the only true ending that they could give to her undead body was dropping on Serenite, the blood of an old god. Makes me wonder, like, how does that work? Of course, retconning and old stories, I know. I have no idea. It's something specific in the Maw. But domination magic is not purely Shadowlands magic. So is it Stygia? Is it the end of all possibilities? Who is to say?
I do wonder if it's true death. I mean, one of my theories is that the Titans don't want true death, and that's why they've turned Shadowlands basically into a soul trap, so that nobody's getting to actually die. And that I do think it would be a great way to resolve Sylvanas' character is allow her to fix the Shadowlands so that people, when they die, and none of this, we get to go visit them in the Shadowlands nonsense, because that was always a bad idea. So fix it so they do pass on, and not necessarily their soul is gone, but they've moved on to a realm that we're never going to visit. Make it clear that's the Shadowlands, the proper true realm of death. And then Sylvanas, because she fixed it, gets to finally die, because her great tragedy is that she didn't get to die. She didn't get to rest after her death. Like, her tragedy isn't dying saving Silvermoon. Her tragedy is she didn't get to rest after she died. She was forced into undeath, and then after she went to the Shadowlands, still forced into what is essentially a form of undeath.
I mean, she could have rested. She just decided not to.
Yeah, just go. Who chooses more dailies? But you don't
No,
get
seriously,
to...
she chose. No, seriously, she chose to go for revenge upon Arthas, which she then
Oh,
got,
yeah,
and then she
yeah.
threw herself off the top of Icecrown, and she decided to come back. Now, of course, if you
That's
end up
true.
in hell for some reason or another, it's a good choice to make, but it's not like.
But she wouldn't have been
She
able to
couldn't
rest in hell. That's the thing. She was just passed on to another torment in death. It was just a different torment in death. She
Yeah,
that's
but
the
then she
thing
talked
that
to the
she
jailer who
says
showed
in
her-
the cinematic.
but-
In the raid cinematic, she says something about wanting to see you before the end, but she says something about rest, that she wants to rest. So I'm convinced that's where her story is going, is she eventually does get to die. In fact, I
But the part about
briefly
her
wondered if when she said briefly before the end, if she just meant herself, and actually she is the third death that's supposed to still happen. But I've lost count of her deaths. I'm not sure what her official count is. I know that Ilaria is supposed to be the third death at the moment. I do have to go, though.
Same.
I've had a
That
really
is
great time.
perfectly
Thank you
fine.
very much. But
Get
yeah,
some dinner
Thanks.
going.
yeah,
Honestly,
same.
you're great at keeping conversation going as well. If you're really good at like managing two people at the same time and your own
Yes.
stories and the podcast, it's really, really well done.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
appreciate that. I've had a few years of practice, but I'm glad that it's working so well. But you two make it very, very easy. But yeah, guys, no, again, thank you so much. Yeah, if you are interested, I think this could be something we can do every now and then. Maybe not every month, but like
Always
whenever
give a
we have
shout.
like a major
Yeah.
content piece or something.
Just let me know.
Sure.
Heck yeah!
Thank
All right.
you, everyone.
Beautiful.
Thank you,
Then-
everyone in all the chats combined.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for hanging and.